Hello and welcome to episode 59 of the Movies in a Podshell podcast. The podcast which takes a theme. This week we ain't got no theme. Well, yes we have. It's Barbenheimer, baby. As always, I'm joined by, well, he's just John. How you doing, John?
I thought you were going to say like the bringer of death and destruction to worlds, or like some like really miserable Oppenheimer quote, so...
Well, last time you were the child snatcher, so I thought I'd better bring it up a little bit. Do you know what, John? I've been uploading our podcast to YouTube.
Hello.
You can go and find us on YouTube, YouTube/ Movies in a Podshell probably, or just put it in the search engine and listen to it all. Anyway, do you know what, right? I've uploaded 10 episodes now, and I realise I used to be so weird when I was introducing the pod. I used to be like... Hello and welcome to Movies in a Podshell podcast. I wouldn't say the Movies in a Podshell podcast.
I remember it used to take you about 4 or 5 takes to even do it. Hold on. Straight in.
Hold on, don't pull back the curtain. Yeah, to be fair, we were pure amateurs.
Yeah.
And John was like, there was one time John was like, you need to write it down. Like you just need to write it down. And then once I'd written it down, I was a bit more.
Jamie just walks around and says it like without people even asking these days. He actually said it at a wedding I went to the other week. As I got up to do a speech, Jamie said hello and welcome right rather loudly from the back, didn't you?
I did, and it got about 7 laughs for the people at the wedding.
Quite a niche reference for the 100 odd people there. But
it's a niche reference if you don't know what you're talking about.
Hey ho, yeah.
Hey ho, right.
We got
Anna VD writes in for the first time ever, I believe. She says, hello, I have a long question. I go to the movie theatre once or twice a week, and I hadn't seen the theatres so packed with people like during Barbenheimer in a long time. I think since Mario Brothers movie. I mean, I assume you're talking about the Bob Hoskins masterpiece from the 1990s.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so my question is, do you guys think Barbenheimer will really bring people back to the movie theatres, or will it be an isolated incident? John, do you want to begin?
I've got thoughts. So, first of all, I think no. Unfortunately, not no, but there's like other factors to why I think this. So if we kind of break it down, I still think the tentpole series like have that kind of I want to see it at the cinema. So I think Mission Impossible was a film like that. I think less so now, but I used to say Marvel films, for obvious reasons, used to get that attraction. I think even that's diminishing just because they've done too much and they need to strip it all back. But what the main thing for me at the moment is the film industry now is recovering from COVID still. Like, the audiences are still not at the levels they were before, and I think like this is the first time it finally feels like they're getting back on their feet, and here we are. But the main thing for me was think about the amount of marketing that went behind Barbie and Oppenheimer, and the genuine... I say genuine, I believe it was like fan-led and like with them being released on the same day, you know, and how that all kind of, it was like a series of events that just happened to happen and it all kind of cascaded down, right? It's kind of like, what's it called? Like liquid, you know, in a bottle, like it's, you know what I'm trying to say?
Liquid, is that Christina Aguilera? Christina Aguilera song?
Oh, Genie in a Bottle. But yeah, something like that. But yeah, anyway, whatever. But my point is, it's just a lot of things happen.
Lightning in a bottle.
Lightning in a bottle. But the other problem I've got with all of this is because of the strikes that are currently going on, which we support, by the way, because people should be fairly paid, writers, directors, and actors, and get the residuals they should get.
I was going to say, what strikes are they? What are you talking about? Because people might not know.
So currently, there is a very large strike going on throughout the entirety of Hollywood, pretty much. Like, nothing's happening apart from like A24 Productions, because they actually agreed to the terms, because they actually give 2 hoots. Anyway, so essentially... there's a lot of films that are being delayed or can't be shot at the moment. Well, they can't be shot at the moment, or there's films that literally are in post-production that can't be marketed. Like, the actors physically cannot talk about those films and promote them. So if you think of that, that is as big an issue as what happened in COVID, because essentially in COVID what you had was a period when they couldn't make things, and it was like, do you remember we had that really dry period, and it was just like Tenet came out and then there was like nothing for ages. And then now we're making that situation again. We're doing it now. I say we're doing it now. We're not. Hollywood's doing it now, and it's a self-made issue. If they literally agreed and like to pay everyone fairly and basically what they're owed, and the cost of like what it's harming them at the moment by all these delays is far greater than if they just paid the residuals.
Oh, hundreds of millions. Done. Yeah, hundreds. And the residuals. What the residuals mean? What John means by the residuals is that when, for example, like Netflix is a really good example when like a show, they hide all their viewership numbers. So even if a show's done if a show's done really, really well, actors would have been paid like slightly more, right? Because you know how well.
The example was Orange Is the New Black. I had a higher in what I'd say its early seasons had a higher viewership than Game of Thrones, but because Game of Thrones went through HBO still had its roots in cable TV and like repeats and like actually getting proper residuals and proper payment.
Yeah.
So they were earning like 5 or 6 times more, even more I think it was, but I don't want to completely misquote, than what the Orange Is the New Black cast were making, because they didn't know what the numbers were. Netflix is the first to shout when they've got high numbers, but they never actually reveal what the number is. They just say it's the most watched show in, you know. So that's the thing. And also, like, there's a horrible trend now, and Disney have been guilty of this, but some streaming platforms have done it too. A show gets big, and when it gets too big and like people start to ask questions, they pull it from the platform so they don't have to pay the residuals. So it's just like,
and it's AI script writing as well. So another thing about these writer strikes was just to do with we've now got AI involved in script writing, and I think something needs to happen with AI. In some barriers put in place where it's like, for example, AI cannot create films in place of people, kind of thing. Like,
I think
do you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be some kind of like.
Is like the AI is coming up with the initial idea and writers are having to go in, because as good as the AI is and like using ChatGPT and those things, it can only take things so far. And without getting too philosophical into all of it, like a lot of storytelling is a very human experience, and it's about emotions and relationships and conveying those things. And like I reckon you could write a Marvel film, like a pretty formulaic Marvel film, quite easily, or a superhero film, like, let's be honest, or DC, and get so far, but you need someone to go in and humanise the relationship.
I could write a Marvel film whilst recording this pod.
Don't start. But anyway, my point to all that is, no, I don't think it's the reinvigoration of Barbenheimer with cinemas and it coming back, because I just feel like Hollywood doesn't help itself. And I also think that because in the pandemic, like, made this more so, we got those releases quicker. Like, there's so many Disney films where I go, that's going to be on Disney Plus in like 5 weeks, and I can watch it at home. I'm like, I might see it, I'm not that bothered, and you know, I don't have to deal with Jamie. When we went to go and see Oppenheimer, Jamie was sat next to someone who had a paper straw.
Oh my goodness!
Just started like blowing it like every so many minutes over. Again. That's a really rubbish thing. But my point is, the cinema experience isn't worth always, because of other people. Like, we're less tolerant now, I think, more than ever, because of being locked up.
Let me just get this off my chest, actually, because like Mission Impossible, when I went to see Mission Impossible, I had a couple sitting next to me to the left of me, and I'm not even joking, I was in the IMAX, the most expensive screen in the cinema, £18 a ticket, 18 quid a ticket, and I've got 2 people sitting next to me talking to each other throughout the first 20 minutes, like proper big action scenes, and then also like, I'm not even joking, both with their phones out scrolling Instagram, and I was like, my mind is literally blown. My mind.
So expensive to do that, because you spend the best part of like, I don't know, like 30 odd quid or whatever.
I could scroll Instagram anywhere, like, but anyway, right? So there's that, right? And but then in Oppenheimer, right? I had this guy sitting next to me, and the IMAX seats. So we went to see Oppenheimer in IMAX as well, because it's an IMAX film, which I'll speak about later, because I don't really think it is, but whatever. So I had a guy sitting next to me, like, and he rolled up this bit of receipt, like, into a really long tube, and he was going,
but he, like,
for 3 hours, and hold on, maybe give him his due, 2 hours and 45 minutes he was doing that, and he was also properly somehow taking up a third of my seat. So in the end, I just like kind of like sat back in my seat and like really just stretched my chest out, like, because I was like, this is, give me my seat back and stop blowing that receipt. So that, and maybe that's why I have a few issues with Oppenheimer, which we'll talk about later on. I don't think it's the masterpiece everyone thinks it is. However, Anna, VD, I'm going to assume it's just Anna, but let's go. So my take on this is that I think it's a really interesting question. I think it's interesting to note that Barbie, an original movie with some really great ideas, makes £1 billion, right? And it's not stopping. It's going to continue to make money. Mattel comes in with now a Mattel universe, developing 14 new properties, including stuff like Barney, Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
It's
Just
the classic Hollywood learning the wrong lessons.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
Cool. Exactly.
Yeah,
Let's give filmmakers a chance to do what they want, because really that Barbie film could have been controlled by the studio and been like actually just what we were expecting it to be, but instead it was something different, which we'll speak about in a bit. Now, we've got the MCU as well, which Johnny mentioned, which isn't making anywhere near enough money anymore. We've got Mission Impossible that underperformed. We've got The Flash, which is one of the biggest bombs of all time. Like, you're talking about Flash in the same kind of breath as Waterworld. So I do think there's going to be kind of almost a death of these super big blockbusters at some point, like the 60s. So in the 1960s, they were like making like big budget, like disaster films that were absolutely tanking, like stuff like
or
Cleopatra.
Historical epics where they like spent so much money on the set.
Yeah.
Because the reason they did it then, and it's similar to what's happening now, they were fighting against TV. Because TVs were in the home and you had to stand out, and it was like, what can we do that TV can't? And TV then was more sitcom-y or like low scale, lower stakes, whatever.
Well, like I Love Lucy, these kinds of things.
So you needed to make big production value, like, and go all out. And then eventually, when you get to the 70s, as Jamie's like alluding to, you kind of got the new wave, didn't you? Of like, actually, do you know what? We'll go dirt cheap. We'll do what's the one on the bike?
The Exorcist,
We'll do
Jaws,
The Exorcist, Jaws.
Don't Look Now.
You know, and you know, we have this whole new creative space. I think like we're not far away from that.
No, we're not, because we're getting stuff like Rye Lane and stuff. So what was going to say was like in the 60s, like there's a film called Cleopatra that nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox, which then caused this like revamp that John's talking about. So that's when you did get like Clockwork Orange, etc., etc. And so I think that this will bring people back for a bit, because people will be like, I had people have been speaking to me that don't even go to the cinema, and they're like, they're dressing up, they're doing all sorts, and I'm like, do you know what? This is such a fantastic thing, and rather than pitting Barbie and Oppenheimer against each other and to be like, go see one or the other, it's become this event which I think is just, it's been super fun. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it as well, and so I do think it will bring people back to cinema. However, I think people will very quickly realize that the game is up when they do start watching these cookie cutter blockbusters that we've seen.
And this is the other problem we've got, though, and James touched on it, is the fact that there's films like Indiana Jones, which are costing well over 200 million now to make, and they normally say the marketing budget is the same again. So you've invested, let's say a bit less. So let's say you spent 350 million. If it doesn't make, you know, big buck quickly in that opening weekend, it's just, and the word of mouth gets around and there's poor reviews, it's basically like over before it's even begun. And that's it,
it's the reviews, isn't it, now?
And then Jamie sent me fairly recently an interesting thing with Matt Damon, and he said because of the death of the DVD market, or the physical media market, he was like, there were films that you could take the hit on. Oh, it wasn't successful initially at the cinema, but then once it got home media, it did well. And there's like certain films that have always done well on home media that may not have done well initially at cinema. Blade Runner is an example of that, for example.
Yeah.
And Fight Club as well did not do great at cinema. It did really well. It was like the highest selling DVD for years and years and years. So it's all that market's gone. But the final point on the spending too much money on them, though, they're spending 200 million on these films, and the films that are being delayed now because of the strikes. If the actors can't promote those films and they don't resolve it, like, there's going to be less I suppose we'll get more online adverts and that kind of thing, but I think so much of the Barbie campaign, the marketing, was done through Margot Robbie turning up at different events in the Barbie outfits. It was thinking outside the box, like doing really creative things. And like, if the actor's not available to do that because they're on strike, how are you going to get bums on seats? And it's their own problem. And I have no sympathy for any of the Hollywood studios over it, because the truth is they've got away with murder for years. But I also think the reckoning's coming for streaming services, because I think we've got used to paying very little for a lot. In the sense,
I think it is little. I think we're not paying, in the grand scheme of things, like paying like what do we pay for Paramount? $5.99 or $6.99?
Whatever it is. If you think about what it would cost to have the same amount of films on a physical media and own them, and I know the differences, they can be removed and that kind of thing, but if you think about it in relative terms, there's going to be a deal struck between studios, because the current model of saying everyone's got to have every studio isn't sustainable, and people won't do it, and they'll all lose money, and it's going to go back to being like a cable. You remember on cable TV when it was like everything's in one place, and then it started to diverge because there were more and more and more channels.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And then eventually it was like, oh, now it's all on this one platform. That's what's happening here again. I think they're going to have to do deals where it's like, if you sign up with Warner Brothers, they've got to deal with Fox, so you can get their category for this and that. Because like my dad was saying the other day, he was trying to watch something, and he said, I was willing to pay to rent it, but none of the apps allowed you to do it unless you literally signed up for it first and then rented back off it. And there's like films that people just can't access anymore because you can't, like back in the day, I remember when Virgin Media used to be like, you went on the store on the TV, or Sky Cinema had the same thing, and you just buy the film you want to rent. And that's becoming harder and harder because of licenses. So it's because of all the studios having their own stream platforms. So eventually it's going to all implode a bit, to be honest.
The problem is it's not none of these things are ever for the consumer anymore. No. It's just, and I think that the more, like, as we'll just finish on this because I know we've been going on it for a bit, but do you know what?
15 minutes on the opening question, baby.
Brilliant question, no. And by the way, this pod is jam-packed full of questions. This is the most questions we've had in ages. I've had to cut some, so if your question doesn't get in, I'm really sorry. Just write in again. Better luck next time. I'm kidding. So we ain't got enough listeners for me to be saying stuff like that. So yeah, what I would say is that studios want more profit now, like compared to what it used to be. So they see like it's just greed, like pure greed. Like this isn't going to be good unless we make 100 million. I'm like, okay,
if you don't make $1 billion, it's not worth it. And that's kind of, there's so many films like and other superhero films that didn't make $1 billion and they were considered failures, even when they made shed loads of cash. But let's move past it because we've got lots of other exciting things to talk about.
Yeah, like John, the most exciting part of the pod. What have you been watching? What one episode of a TV show have you been watching?
Yeah, the update is Succession season 2. I was supposed to be taking a break between seasons, but season 1 finale was so fantastic it never happened.
I've just finished season 1 of Succession as well.
There we go. We can't really say much because I know people.
No spoilers.
It, but it is genuinely probably top 3 shows I've ever watched, and for me, it's not far off from being. Buffy number 1. No.
I'm joking.
In terms of genuinely quality, like I was debating in my head the other day, Succession or Euphoria, then I got myself a bit upset trying to make a decision, so I'm just not even going to get into it. The other thing I've been watching and really, really enjoying, it's a very short section this week. Strange New Worlds season 2 is out, and they're still on the episodic format, but they have longer arching things over the series. So so many TV shows now, it's like 13 episodes, but it's one plot line. So if you don't like the plot line, you shaft it.
Yeah.
They've gone away from that, and I love it. I kind of wish they'd just say, they keep pretending it's a prequel to the original series. I think it should just be its own thing. It's got the same characters, but it should just be like a different, like inspired by, rather than trying to tie it all up. However, recently they've done an episode which crossed over with Lower Decks, which is a cartoon which is like Rick and Morty, and I thought I would hate it, and it was really good.
Okay.
I was like gobsmacked. And the other thing they did was a musical episode, again like Buffy, and
what, Star Trek?
Yeah, exactly.
What are they doing? They've lost the plot, mate.
No,
Head's gone.
It sounds so mad, and like I heard about them, and classic. This is the problem with the internet. I heard about them, and I was automatically annoyed by both suggestions. I was like, this is ridiculous, this is rubbish. I watched both of them and thoroughly enjoyed it. And this is why any reaction videos for someone who's not seeing something getting triggered, just ignore it. We'll get into that later.
Oh my goodness.
Like, honestly, it just shows that until you give these things a try, you just don't know. But it's just, it's super, it sounds really sad. It's a show with the cinematography super bright, super colourful. You know what the uniforms are like in old Trek in the 60s, like bright yellow, bright red, bright blue. It just looks like it's so nice to watch a show that's not modern day. It's a bit of escapism. It's still relatively optimistic future. My favourite episode I've watched recently was actually about it was a flashback one. It was like a PTSD war episode, so it was really depressing. But it was just a really, like, I've never seen an episode like it. It's basically about a nurse on the front line, and it went back to, in Discovery, which is the series before, it was about the Klingon War, and basically they just had, like, on this transporter pad, and it just kept saying incoming transport, and it was just like dead people over and over and over. And
are they linked? Is Discovery and Strange New Worlds linked? Is it Strange New Worlds?
Yeah.
Are they linked?
Without getting too into it, Discovery Season 2 is basically like the pilot for Strange New Worlds, and then Strange New Worlds came after. It wasn't initially planned to, but they built the set of the Enterprise, and everyone was like, we love Pike, who's the captain, and we love Spock.
Yeah.
Let's make this. And I really enjoyed season 1. I have my issues with it. We talk about it all the time, so I won't repeat in terms of dialogue. But on the whole, it's genuinely a fun show. I think there's really good supporting cast. It's just you saying Buffy actually is really interesting because it does remind me of Buffy. And in some ways, I don't want it to remind me of Buffy because Buffy was always kind of that kind of like high schooly conversation.
Yeah,
not taking it seriously enough. But on the whole, yeah, really thoroughly enjoying it. That's my filler. Jamie, what have you been watching?
Is that it? No.
I've watched nothing else. Jamie.
Okay, well, it's down to me then, isn't it, to pull it back? Well, do you know what? Me and John were at a wedding, and then I had another wedding in the same week.
And he still watched more.
And I still managed. So the night before the wedding, I rewatched The Raid. So look, if you want to know about The Raid, go back and listen to our first ever episode. Hear me say, "Welcome to Movies in a Podshell podcast." Really awkward. It's not that awkward.
So bad as well.
It is. But do you know what? I actually think that for a first episode and the first few episodes, not that bad really in the grand scheme of things. So yeah. I wasn't cringing. Speaking of cringe, I then watched a film called Mr. Nanny. Now, this is a film from my childhood. I used to have a double box set, VHS, of Mr. Nanny and Suburban Commando, starring none other than Hulk Hogan. Now,
wow.
Yeah. He's big, he's bad, and he's babysitting. So it's basically Hulk Hogan is hired to be the bodyguard / nanny for a couple of kids whose dad, who's an inventor, is being stalked by this bad guy called Thanatos, starring David Johansen. Thanatos. Starring David Johansen, who you might know from Scrooged. He's not done a great deal, but he was in Scrooged, and he was in A Very Merry Christmas. So he's brilliant, by the way. So he's great. It's just it's badly written, it's badly acted. I like it. So
bit of fun.
What are you going to do about it?
It's like the Mortal Kombat.
Bit of fun. On Sunday, I then watched. It's been on my list for ages. Would you say like a what movie?
Mortal Kombat.
Oh, you nearly got away with that one, didn't you?
So
nearly got away with that one.
Yeah, go on.
Do you know what? Maybe it's because I've had one whiskey. I tell you what, by the time this episode has finished, it's going to be known as Barbenheimer because I've got my whiskey. John's got his wine, red wine. Sophisticated tonight, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I watched the film called Skate Kitchen by Crystal Mazel. It's kind of like what I would say it's like a slice of life documentary style filmed. It's a drama following a young girl who is just basically befriends a group of female skateboarders, and it's just about the relationship with her parents and the relationship with her friends. It's just really good, like coming of age. I loved it, and that's on Channel 4 at the moment. So that more 4 is it? All four, whatever.
Coming of age though, so it was already a tick for you.
The problem is when you're watching stuff on All 4 is that you've got to watch it and you get adverts every 20 minutes.
Not have them though. To be fair, they do offer a paid subscription of around £6 a month.
All right. Welcome to Movies in a Podshell, sponsored by All 4. So anyway, yeah, we're not.
I'll take it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really good. It really did remind me. It's basically the male version of this would be mid-90s, the one directed by Jonah Hill.
I've not seen that, and I wish I had.
Oh, it's great. It's really good. It's really good. 90 minute banger. But yeah, just make sure you don't go surfing without him. Anyway, never mind. A little private joke there for the listeners that know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. And then I watched Hardware. I'm saying this for the third time because I've lagged out 3 times. Some really angry outtakes from this episode. I watched a film called Hardware from 1990, and a friend of the show, Kim, who has been on a couple of times, she came up to Birmingham. We were hanging out with our other friend Tom, and we went to a metal bar, Subside. John knows it well. He's thrown up in their toilet enough times. And we were playing pool. So basically, we have some drinks, and I'm like, do you know what? I fancy playing pool because I'm better at pool when I've had a few drinks, as is everyone, until you get to a certain point. And there was some guy like chatting to us, and they were like, oh yeah, like how do you know each other and that? And he was like some like like older guy. And he was basically like taking the piss out of us because we were like, oh yeah, we know each other from Instagram, like we chat about films and stuff, blah blah blah. And he's like, oh yeah. Well, and then his friend was like, whoa, have they seen Hardware? And he's like, well, of course they've seen Hardware because why are they film fans if they've not seen Hardware? So eventually, about 9 months later, I see Hardware. Right? Oh, it's crap. Directed by Richard Stanley. I think it's a bit of a cult film, and you probably had to be there. This is about a government-built killing machine programmed with artificial intelligence. It's able to repair and recharge itself from any energy source. Through a series of coincidences, the cyborg's head ends up in the home of a sculptress as a bizarre Christmas present from a boyfriend. Once inside its new home, the cyborg promptly reconstructs the rest of its body using a variety of household utensils and proceeds to go on a murderous rampage. What an amazing synopsis. 10 out of 10 synopsis. The film's crap. Directed by Richard Stanley, who actually also did Colour Out of Space, the Nicolas Cage one. It was just really boring. Just took ages to get going. We're speaking of low budget films. This is like low budget, but like it ain't no upgrade, you know? £3 million budget. It's not upgrade. So what I would say is, unless you were around in the 1990s and this was a cult film, then crack on, you love it. Do you know what? This is to people what I think Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren is to me. That's what I think. Yeah? I would mention Mortal Kombat, but that's a genuinely good film, so I ain't gonna. And do you know what else I've been doing? So finally, we've had some... I just want to say, we have had some like... Proper laggy issues. I'm furious. I'm absolutely furious.
Piggybacking on Jamie's Wi-Fi, I'm convinced.
I've just knocked the next door neighbour and asked them. Anyway, so I've been just on a bit of an anime binge. Like I do love my anime, and I've been watching some One Piece. So I'm currently on episode 30 something. I've only got about 900 episodes to go before I catch up.
It goes on forever, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. But do you know what? It's good fun. It's fun. So yeah. But anyway, we're not here really. How far are we in, John? About 25 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Not bad, eh?
Best talk about Barbie.
Yeah, we best talk about Barbie. Barbie from 2023, directed by Greta Gerwig.
Hey, Barbie. Can I come to your house tonight?
Sure. I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
So cool.
You can find me under the lights, diamonds under my eyes.
This is the best day ever.
It is the best day ever. So is yesterday, and so is tomorrow, and every day from now till forever. Do you guys ever think about dying?
Like Space Jam, but better.
Like Space Jam, but better. Oh, you heard it here first, jcb.video. Claire writes in, and she says, what's the best article you've read about Barbenheimer? Now, can I just say, maybe not an article, but maybe a video by, well, listen to this.
Let me begin with my generalized assessment of the movie. This movie is not just a piece of shit. This movie is a flaming piece of dog shit piled atop an entire dumpster on fire, piled atop a landfill filled with dog shit. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. On every possible level, it is a horrific movie.
Shut up, Ben Shapiro. Do you know what? I've heard and I've seen some like crazy stuff about this film. Crazy.
We were sending each other, trying to find the worst ones we could find and sending it because it was just quite funny to see how triggered people were getting. And yeah, it's wild. And do you know what though? And I will pull this back a second actually. You know, some people got big on YouTube because they ranted about one thing that they were genuinely passionate about and they genuinely disagreed with. But then they got massive views. So they have to hate everything. Even if they don't hate everything, they have to hate everything. Because film discourse now is you love it or you hate it. People don't like it like when we say 6 out of 10 because they feel it's a cop-out. Well, it's actually a general opinion of seeing certain things that are artistically good and other things that didn't work so well, but actually it's a good watch. People don't like that. They're like, no, it's rubbish. It's the worst thing in the world or it's the best thing in the world. And I hate it. And I feel like watching the discourse around Barbie and Oppenheimer has just opened it up again. In the sense of, well, I say open it up again, it's all the time, but just seeing people just try and defend wild ass views either side.
It's cringy. Like, it's really cringy.
No
So-
nuance. That's what I was trying to say. No nuance. No.
There isn't, unless you listen to this unless you listen to the most honest movie podcast, which is Movies in a Podshell. We just tell the truth, you know. We're just honest about it, and you're going to hear some honesty now.
It's okay to think something's okay and not great and not hate it. By the way, I just want people to know that, because I feel like in life now, like you can't just say, "Oh, it's fine." Like people feel like so upset. Like,
That's not interesting, John. What do you mean it's fine? I want to hear the dirt. Do you know what's funny, right? When you type in on YouTube, like Barbie, whatever, it's just like a massive list of videos of people saying it's like really woke and stuff, like, and it's funny
why
because
Barbie hates men.
yeah.
Like, in that voice, like like you can see the capital letters and the exclamation marks as it starts, and you also know that they've like either not watched the film or have watched the film and not been able to actually like interpret it the correct way, which is a bit even funnier, and it triggers them more when people say that to them, and like it just kicks off. But yeah,
Barbie is feminist propaganda. Feminist propaganda. Are you mad? It's funny because I find everyone getting so offended about like the anti-men stuff are the same people moaning that people are snowflakes when there's video after video of people crying that the film's woke. And I'm in the camp where, like, I generally don't love the fact that the world's gone mad with like political correctness and everyone's offended by anything, but it's a little bit embarrassing for people like Ben Shapiro, who's crying for 45 minutes about a movie about a doll. And by the way, can I just say, Ben Shapiro, who's like, if for anyone who doesn't know what he is, just try and avoid his videos anyway, because he's a bit of a twat. He's like a right-wing political commentator. What are you doing reviewing films? Do you know what I mean? Leave it to the big boys. Leave it to Jamie and Johnny.
Okay, that was a tangent and a half. What was the initial question? I can't remember. But best article. Right.
Claire writes in, what's the best article you've read about Barbenheimer?
Okay, so I've got two to go from. There is one video which it's a bit of a cheat I enjoyed, and it's from Mr. Sunday Movies, and it was like, guess if it's a Barbie or Oppenheimer review from the negative review, which was quite good fun. Yeah. And then the other one was very simple. It was like, it reminded me of the Tumblr days. It was just a page with all the memes collected in one place, so I didn't have to scroll on Twitter. And it was like really cool seeing some of the artwork people have made. Like, some of it's genuinely really creative. I know some of it's AI, but some people have done some old school Photoshop, and it was good fun.
Oh, I've been uploading it. To like hyping our episode, hyping it up like people are going to care. For me, like, generally, I found a Barbenheimer article on Wired, which I found quite interesting, which was basically Barbenheimer signals the start of Hollywood's apocalypse, and that was kind of about like Mattel like now rolling out the 14 different properties because it's made a billion, etc., etc. Very interesting.
Hot Wheels movie. I'm so excited.
I love a Hot Wheels movie. Then I did. Do you know what else? I did watch a video which was from a YouTuber called Shoe on Head, which I do find quite funny. She did a video called Barbie, an accidental anti-woke masterpiece.
Oh yeah, I watched that. That was quite funny.
Really good. She's just generally quite funny, quite level-headed. I mean, but as we said, most of the discourse around Barbie is. Yeah, it sucks, but do you know what? We're going to go into that in a bit. What's Barbie about, though? John?
This is why I said Looney Tunes, by the way, before people get offended.
Space Jam.
I love Space Jam. Like, and basically it's about how the cartoons get in the real world and they play basketball. And essentially, like, Barbie kind of reminds me of that because it's got that really cool kind of otherworldly, it's not animation, but that otherworldly style for, like, the Barbie land, and then, like, they go into the real world. But anyway, enough about that. Barbie is essentially... every day is the same in Barbie land. So Margot Robbie wakes up every day, does the same thing. She drinks from a cup, but there's no water in the cup. She steps in the shower, but there's no water in the shower. And every day is the same day. So although like all the Barbies are in control, which is why they hate men, that's not true. That's just what people say. So Barbies are kind of like going amongst themselves, and basically there's a female president, there's a Barbie president, there's like every job you can do anything, and the Barbies believe that in the real world they've inspired women so they can do anything and like everything's great. But the Barbie world is like very obviously fake in the fact of like, one, everything's made of plastic and like literally your feet aren't on the ground, like your heels are raised, like the classic Barbie look. And like the Kens in that society are kind of simps, aren't they? They're just essentially just kind of standing around, and like their whole meaning in life is like to be wanted to be seen by Barbie, like, and
Ken doesn't have a good day unless Barbie notices him.
So essentially one day though, Margot Robbie's Barbie, which is stereotypical Barbie, wakes up and she's having existential thoughts about like, do you ever think about death? And everyone's like, and because everyone in Barbie Land, every day's a party, like every day's the same, it's like repeated. And essentially she then gets told by Weird Barbie. Weird Barbie is like if you've ever played with a Barbie and cut its hair off and, I don't know, put it in the split.
So someone compared this to Cynthia from Rugrats, you know?
Yeah, same vibe. And essentially she's like, does a Matrix scene where it's like blue pill, red pill, and it's like, no, you need to go to the real world because the person that's playing with your doll is like depressed and we need to find out why, and the only way to fix it is to go to the real world and find out. So Barbie, off she goes, and I love the fact like Barbie goes to the real world and it's kind of explained, but it's not explained. It's just like, it doesn't matter. It's like you get this, you get a boat, you get a rocket ship.
She gets there.
You get that, and you see like this weird kind of like 2D. I say 2D, it's not. It's all 3D, but it kind of looks like if you went to see a theatre production. It's that kind of vibe. Do you know what I mean? Like the car and like this and that and like a rolling road. And Ken sneaks in with Barbie. But when they arrive in the real world, basically everyone's laughing at them because they look like a bit ridiculous because they've got like their big bright yellow outfits on and like rollerblades. And essentially Barbie gets sexually assaulted within like the first 10 minutes of being in the real world. And Ken starts to learn about patriarchy. And he basically works out that he's noticed in this world and likes being noticed, but he thinks patriarchy is basically about men and men ruling the world, but on horses. So essentially he like starts like going and applying for jobs he has no right to go to, and there's some really funny gags of like he applies to be a doctor with no experience. He applies in a business and like he's like, what is it? They basically say something like, "Oh, we're just." He's like, "Oh, I thought."
Can I see your credentials?
And he's like, "No, we're just a lot better at hiding it. We're just a lot better at hiding it now." Basically, I'm a man. Can't you just give me a job? And he's like, "No." Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm butchering that, but so yeah, it's just like sets up all these things. But Barbie's journey is she kind of is feeling all these really like I described to Jamie, it was almost like a coming of age film in the sense of like it's like a teenager going around and like starting to get hit by all the big emotions and like questioning like, why am I here, what am I doing, and like, you know, Barbie's like crying all the time. She doesn't know why she's crying, and she meets who she thinks is the person who plays with her, but it's actually the daughter of the person who's playing with her doll,
which I thought was quite clever. I like that.
It was clever, and it switched out. But you know, there's that daughter basically goes back and says, you know, you set back women's rights by like 50 years because of
you're a fascist.
You're a fascist. And like I feel like some people took that at face value and thought the film's glorifying her, but actually I don't think it is.
No. So there's a lot of things that people have really misinterpreted, I think.
But anyway, essentially, yeah, we'll deep dive into it. But just so we do the overall plot, because it sounds like surprisingly complex for what it is. But anyway, and then Barbie goes to Mattel, to the HQ, and we get to see Will Ferrell, who's on great form. I love him, and he's in full Anchorman mode. And basically, he's like, all you need to do, Barbie, is just get back in your box, and
brilliant,
and we'll send you back, and like everything will be fine. And then she kind of second guesses it and doesn't go back in the box. And there's just this really stupid chase sequence where they're chasing her around. And essentially, she meets the lady who's been playing with her, who is like, she works on reception, I think, at Mattel.
Yeah. So she works for Mattel,
and she's the lady from Ugly Betty. I've not seen her in anything else in years. So
America Ferrera.
And then basically, they go. Her and her daughter go back with Barbie to the Barbie Land, and they see, Ken's taught everyone about the patriarchy, and the Barbies have all decided that, like, actually they're going to serve the men, and the men don't really know what they're doing. Like, the Kens don't really know what they're doing.
No, they're just hanging out drinking beer, and one of the Barbies does say, "Oh, like do you know what? Like, I'm actually sick of. I want a break from leading. Like, it's hard leading all the time."
Yeah. It is implied in the film though, like in Mars Attacks, like the idea of like they're easy to take over because they've never been exposed to the outside world before. So like the idea of having such a radical shift, they're more likely to take to it. Because I know some people are offended by the fact like how quickly they took over. But anyway, who am I?
Yeah.
I'm not the creator. I just watched it. And then, yeah, basically it all kind of unfurls where Ken does his amazing number about I'm just Ken, and it's about like not being noticed and how much he struggles. But then, yeah, finally it all kind of breaks down with like the Kens find a new position in society because Barbies make them all jealous by setting them against each other so they can retake over and get rid of the patriarchy and just have Barbieland back to as it was. But I don't think it is that. I think by the end of the film there is a new equilibrium, which is the Kens are now going to
almost
be
free. They've realised that they're free to be themselves.
They don't have to rely on being noticed by Barbie. They can do roles, like they can go and help the presidential stuff, or they can go and be a writer. They can do this. They can do whatever they want to do. And my read on it was, and I might be completely wrong because Christ, the amount of videos I've watched now with such differing opinions. You know, when you're just like bombarded so much, you're like, oh my god, I don't even know anymore.
I don't even know what my own opinions are anymore.
But my read at the time was like the Kens represented how women are treated in real life or have been treated in real life, and by the end of the film it's like, no, actually a better way for the world to work is like everyone to be involved and like kind of everyone have a go and, you know, like intermix more and have more of an input and go that way. And I feel like so many people didn't take that read on it, which then made me think if I just got this horribly wrong. But that was my take on it. And then in terms of like, I know like people have issues with certain scenes, so there is a key scene is basically when the mother starts telling Barbie how hard it is to live in the real world. And
America Ferrera's character is back in. She's in Barbie Land. She comes back to Barbie Land with Barbie. Yeah,
and she's basically does a now infamous speech because I've seen it on TikTok and
like monologue. It's like a big monologue,
about like the difficulties of being a woman. Now, look, I'm not a woman, but I can read a lot of that and understand a lot of the things I've witnessed over the years. Like, I remember when we were growing up, it was the paparazzi stage, and I remember Winehouse and all Lindsay Lohan and all that crowd being absolutely hounded and treated like absolute dirt and profited off, and like the, you know, they can only be a certain amount of weight, but they can't be too skinny, and you can't be too fat, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and you can't want to have that, and you've got to be grateful, but you can't be too grateful. And, you know, like, we've witnessed it, and I feel like a lot more of it's more apparent since Me Too, and like we had a bit of this chat on the Promising Young Woman episode quite a long time ago now, probably 2 years ago now. So yeah, like I can't directly relate, obviously, but I've got a sister and a mum, and I've got a wife and a daughter now, and like I kind of
surrounded by women, mate.
Surrounded by them, but just like, you know, there's parts of it you do understand, and like, you know, are true or have experienced that party, and like I feel like people have kind of got obsessed with this idea of, oh, this isn't for me or it is for me, and I kind of treated it as more of a, as stupid as it sounds, like it's quite eye-opening in the sense of just making you think it, like, if you saw the Barbie trailer, it's like a really clever way of like marketing it like it was a silly 2000s comedy, and we're going to go into the real world and how silly it is, and actually it's got quite big messages to get across, whether you agree with them or not, about, you know, like critiquing society, making you think about it. And I think that's good. Like, I came out and we're having this conversation, and like, who'd have thought we'd be having this conversation about a Barbie film? Oppenheimer also has massive, definitive, life-changing questions about like existence, and like, oh my god. And like, that for me is like good cinema, talking about it afterwards. But, and like, the discourse around Barbie has probably fueled the money as much as anything else, people to repeat and go and see it. But I'm just been staggered by how many people have been offended or like hated on it, and just like, I don't know, like, if you don't agree with it, that's fine. Like, it's fine if you don't agree with it.
Well,
do you know what I mean? Like, well, I say it's fine. Like, you can have that opinion. Like, people have the right to their own opinions, but like, you just don't need to preach it to everyone else and start hating on other people. It's just nuts. But anyway, hey ho.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much. We've been movies in a...
Sorry.
No, that was great, mate. Like, you had some pretty...
It's a hard one, because I saw it on Saturday, and like, trying to just get your thoughts down on like how you feel about it. It's been, I feel, quite hard. I don't know if you've been...
I've found it very difficult. Like, I can speak about Oppenheimer much more eloquently, probably, because it's quite a well, anyway, never mind.
I tell you part of the thing I think as well. There's been so much discourse on social media.
Oh my goodness.
And I think it's been hard to kind of. I almost had to kind of go off for a few days.
Yeah, I try not to read anything because I don't want anything taking my own opinion.
Same with Oppenheimer as well, because I know we'll get into it. Some people disappoint with certain bits and pieces, but yeah, I just
look.
Yeah.
The film. At the end of the day, right? The film's made over £1 billion, so in reality, there's been millions and millions and millions of people that have seen this probably, and the ones that are crying about it, the people that have got are crying. Yeah, the people that are crying about it that have got the most to say are the ones that are going to make videos on it. So that's all right. That's all good. And I think it's been grossly misunderstood by a lot of people as well, because I actually thought that the film takes a pop at everyone.
It's like
no one's safe.
Yeah, like when you made the joke about the anti-woke thing, there are like that reviewer is talking about the fact that actually the child that says, Barbie, you're a fascist and you set things back 50 years. He was kind of saying like
she's not portrayed in a good way.
No,
she's
you're
mean.
not portrayed in a good
she's
way.
mean. She's woke. So people like for that girl, like people may see her as like she's totally woke. She's been really mean to someone that has been quite nice to her, and she saying
calls her a mental lady, and then reverts it back and says, "Oh, actually, she's da da." And I think it's making us like a sniping a point at the fact of like, and
it doesn't look good for her. She's been mean to a person that has basically approached her and kind of tried to be nice. So, I think no one is safe in this. At the same time, the film is. I think it's like a 8 out of 10. There were parts where you mentioned this big monologue, and yeah, for me as a guy, I found it very heavy-handed. If I'm being perfectly honest. I found it went on for too long. I felt like the message could have gotten across without. I think at that point it probably beats the audience over the head a little too hard, and I think that it has allowed the audience to be. It has assumed the audience is clever enough to understand all of what's going on, but then we have this monologue, which is a great piece of acting, but it's like it's also a bit. It's like, it's a bit cringy. Like it's a bit cringy.
It's the lowest common denominator. It's like if you haven't got any of the references throughout the film, and you haven't been able to read what we're trying to say, here it is. Do you know what I mean? It's like exposition dump, but not exposition, but just kind of. And I get the argument for that, but I also feel like the performance is good enough and emotive enough, and again.
I cringed. I was sitting there, I was like, this is actually like, I'm feeling like you think I'm an idiot now, because you're talking about all the things that I already know, because you've shown it already. You've done the smart thing by showing it, and Greta Gerwig is a really smart director, so I would probably say that was either improvised or she's not written that, or I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'm completely off base. Do you know? Maybe there's women out there being like, Jamie, shut your mouth. Like, actually, people need to know this, because maybe not everyone's as clued in as. And I'm not saying I'm clued in, but maybe not everyone has this EQ.
Because we don't have it. It's like when we did Promising Young Woman. We had to put, we're not stupid. We had to say, look, like, if you remember, we had people write in and tell us stories about struggling to walk down the bloody road and like stuff.
Yeah, crazy.
And it was a real eye opener of just like, as a man, like, you do take for granted, you never think of those things. And without getting too far into it, that speech in Barbie was a similar kind of reaffirming the things that I probably don't bat two eyelids about or haven't thought about, but you've seen from afar. Like, you've seen the way papers hound women for doing the wrong thing or the right thing. You see the way social media targets and vampires and like sucks the life out of people.
You have equal stories, don't you?
Crap, like, yeah, you do. But also, I feel like the film did represent a lot of the issues for Ken. Like,
100%.
Toxic masculinity is like the whole, like, the Brad Pitt, is this what a real man looks like? And then he's there like absolutely shredded to the nines and with Ed Norton. But like, it's the same thing with Ken walking around with his 8-pack and God knows whatever else. But like, the fact that he doesn't feel valued in society, and when he sets up the new patriarchy or the Kendom, whatever, his whole thing is like, I feel like it's trying to say that the Kens didn't really fully understand it, but like, it's not their fault they are where they are, but they just want to be heard. Do you know what I mean? That was kind of my read on it. No?
Yeah, like so you've got Margot Robbie playing the stereotypical Barbie, and we see all kinds of Barbies. We see astronaut Barbie, Doctor Barbie, and in that regard, like when this girl's saying that like you've set women back 50 years or whatever, Margot Robbie was quoted in an interview saying that was Doctor Barbie was out before women were even allowed credit cards. At the same time, and Barbie is a stereotypical Barbie, like, and although Barbie's an impossible ideal for women in terms of looks, I'd probably say the same thing goes for men. Like, you never see an action man with male pattern baldness, or Max Steel with a gut, or 5'8" Captain Scarlet. Not sure why I'm describing myself in all this, but like, there we go. At least I can buy a Gimli action figure. Like it does go both ways. I think in society and in like the way men and women are portrayed most of the time. Obviously, men in terms of older men are considered that men get better with age, better looking, George Clooney, blah blah blah, and then women have to stay young. Those are all like big issues, but at the same time, like I do think like this film is very clever in the way. I just do think I say criticizes. I don't mean criticize. It throws stones at everyone.
Yeah, no stones left unturned. What I was going to say was really interesting. You know, when Robert Pattinson was going for Batman,
yeah,
he basically made a thing of being like he hates in Hollywood how jacked people get because he believes a lot of it's down to naughty substances, etc., etc. And in the Batman, like he's like pretty jacked, but he's not like he's got a whole thing physique. About body image and like trying to not sell, like trying to not give people mental health issues. Because like when you're 15 and you're looking at Brad Pitt in Fight Club and being like, God, yeah, that's not what I'd look like, no matter how many times I go to the gym.
Yeah, I've never had a six pack in my entire life, and my life, and you know what? If I didn't have to work full time and I was paid millions of pounds to look a certain way,
why not?
Easy peasy.
Anyway,
easy peasy.
It's not about us, but it was just an interesting parallel and like a thing. It's a way of us looking at it from a relatable aspect. I think is the point we're trying to get across. That's not 100% demeaning any of the take of the film. It's just like, interesting.
And the people that are saying anti-men, like obviously Barbie Land, the beginning of Barbie, like obviously it's loosely based on like a matriarchy. Although I would never describe the Kens as downtrodden or oppressed in any way. Ken is just programmed to love Barbie. Like he is there as an accessory, as in Mattel made Ken as an accessory to Barbie. Like they date, they should date. Like Barbie is the number one, like in this world. And as I said earlier, it even says Ken only has a good day when Barbie notices him. It shows sympathy for Ken in a film that is apparently anti-men. And how he wants, when the night when he spent kind of a little bit of time with Barbie, and they have this beach off on the beach, is like, yeah, I'm gonna beat you off, like, and all this, like, there's like some pretty funny jokes, like, she's quite cold to him at the end of the night, and she asks him to leave, it's like, yeah, I want you to leave now, see you later, and Ken's devastated because he exists to be with Barbie. That's the only thing he cares about. So I do think it's quite sympathetic to Ken. I think that Ken is indoctrinated by the real world when he visits the real world, and so like I don't really see how it's anti-men. I think that when Margot Robbie as Barbie comes to the real world in her rollerblades with Ken, men are all looking at her, and I imagine women probably experience that all the time. That's not really anything out of the ordinary. Like so, when she gets sexually assaulted and like the guy smacks her ass, and when all the builders are looking at her, I don't think that's outside the realms of possibility. Like, that's probably happened, you know? Like, what? Like, where's the anti-men? Apart from when the guys go back, start the patriarchy, and really, like, it's not showing them in that bad a light. They're not doing anything that bad.
No, it's not like, as one of the video critiques you sent me said, it was like, if Ken had gone and then slapped Barbie's backside in Barbie Land, and it was making the point of, like, he's been poisoned by it all, by the real world or whatever, then, you know, but like the Kens didn't do that. Like they were much simpler. They wanted to be heard was their argument at the end of it, and like they weren't doing anything particularly bad, were they? Do you know what I mean? And I think the film's not trying to say, by the way, that Barbie Land was perfect at the start. It's trying to say it's actually quite artificial and quite fake, because everyone's being so nice to each other and so like super heightened. And like the fact Barbie chooses to go to the real world is the biggest tell. If it's so terrible, she wouldn't have chosen to go there, but she wanted to be independent and be heard and like live life and have every day be different. And like it's trying to, I think the end message is the world isn't perfect. No, it's not, but you just kind of got to make the best of it, which might be completely mad and wrong, but
no,
like that's kind of like, you know, we can hope for better, you can strive for better, and you can be optimistic about these things. And like,
yeah, I want to talk about the end, but not quite yet.
Yeah.
David Ellis writes in and he says, I know that some people have described Barbie as a man-hating film, which I completely disagree with, but do you feel Barbie's commentary about the patriarchy went far enough? I feel it could have been darker and more biting in places. Now, I've got a little bit on
Go
this.
for it.
I think for the nature of the film, I think it's fine. I think if people want more than that, they can go and watch something like Promising Young Woman. I think that the Barbie film has a good balance. They probably didn't want to completely alienate younger viewers or go like overly political. And this is where like when you've got someone, I know I've mentioned him a few times, like just don't go and watch his stuff. Like Ben Shapiro, like I could stomach about 15 minutes and I got really bored. But he does like a 47-minute review on Barbie and slates loads of it, like, and he's really kind of, he's just, there's a point where he's just like exaggerating loads of stuff and he's making stuff up. He's basically saying like the film is aimed at like 7-year-old girls. I'm like, well, actually, like it's not. It's a 12 or PG-13. It's not absolutely not aimed at kids at all. So that's one thing I wouldn't say. At the same time, I think in the anti-men stuff, it was quite sympathetic towards the Kens, and I think it could have been. It would have ended up making the film quite mean-spirited had they gone back to Barbie Land and had the Barbies, I don't know, like making fake dinners, grabbing fake beers. Do you know what I mean? Like, there may have been some fun to be had in like the stereotypicalness of that, or the like harkening back to those kinds of like stereotypes. But I think that it handled the stuff quite well, and I didn't want it to be mean-spirited because it didn't need to be mean-spirited. Does that make sense? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of said my point on the previous thing, really, in the sense of like, is it man-hating? And sorry, I'm reading notes. I'm rubbish when I read notes. But all I was going to say was, yeah, we've talked about the fact that the Barbie world is shown as being really fake and plastic, and the fact that Barbie chooses to go back to the real world kind of tells me it's not that bad, or she thinks she can make a difference, or, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like if she hated men all that much, she wouldn't have gone.
No.
but that's basically what it is. And the other thing I wrote down, and I think it's true, is the fact it's triggered men probably shows it's right on the money about a lot of things, which is like, people don't like being told hard truths, do they? So I feel like, yeah, that's my thing with it. I think I feel a lot of it, I think it went the right amount, because honestly, if it had gone any more, the people who were already triggered probably would have been even worse so. And also, it's kind of the thing of like how to present your message in the best way. So you've critiqued that speech towards the end, saying like that felt preachy compared to the other stuff being more subtle, and I think that's a fair comment. And maybe if it had been more like that, it wouldn't have got as much the positive reception as it has received. But the other thing is, I just feel like, also, I'll relate to the question, but the film can be seen on multiple levels. Like, for the teenagers and kids who go in, who just want to go and watch the Barbie film and see the bright, colourful stuff and see the different models of Barbie and see the different Kens and laugh at Ryan Gosling, you can go into it for that. And like I joked about Looney Tunes, but with the Will Ferrell character and all that stuff, that's all there for you. Or if you want, and you want to like actually listen to some critique of the society we live in and how it works and like how we got to where we've got, like, it's there for you. But like,
that's a really good point.
It doesn't have to like be your sole takeaway. There's something like, the cliche is something for everyone, but there is. And like, I think even if you don't agree with everything that's being presented across it, surely it's good that there's a piece of art or film, however you want to describe it, that's causing such debate and making people question things, because that's what good art does. And like, I know that sounds so pretentious and a bit wanky, and I don't like saying stuff like that on the pod, but like, at the end of the day, it's like, why is you know, it references 2001 at the start with the monolith and with Barbie arriving, and you know, like, why is 2001: A Space Odyssey one of the greatest films of all time? Because you don't really know what it's about. That's the point. It's like, what's the meaning of life? It's the ongoing question. And without getting too far into it, in Barbie, essentially, like, you know, there's lots of themes and ideas that aren't all fully fleshed out. Some are left open to interpretation, and people are discussing it, and some people don't like the answers they're finding, and that's interesting. I don't know, like, I find the discourse around it as interesting as the film itself, to be completely honest, but there you go.
I think you're right. And do you know what? It's funny because we've spent so much time talking about the discourse. We've not.
Let's talk about performances. I mean, I want to get into it now. So, cinematography-wise, this film looks like it was shot in 2004 in the best kind of way. It's bright, colourful, poppy, and, like, I love all the Barbie Land stuff. I think the fact, like, the houses are made so to, like, how the toys were. I'm pretty sure my sister had the Barbie dream house, because I remember specifically sitting and demolishing one of those. But anyway, when I was, like, 2. But yeah,
toxic masculinity,
yeah, I know. Asserting myself as the younger brother. Anyway, so yeah, I think that, like, I love the whole Margot Robbie's fantastic. There's no two ways about it. The fact, like, not just her performance as Barbie with, like, the feet and everything, but it's when she gets in the real world. The film's basically having, like, a really slow mental breakdown, like realizing, like, how difficult things are and, like, how horrible the world can be, but then also by the end of it, positively, like, finding a way to navigate through that and finding out, you know, just be you. And yeah, she's brilliant. And I know a lot of people are saying that, you know, Ryan Gosling steals it, and yeah, he has some great scenes, but it all works because of Margot Robbie being the audience's in. She's the one you relate to and follow through the most. And again, I describe it as a coming of age film because it's like someone who's inexperienced going out into the real world and then finding out what it's like and coming back changed. So it does feel coming of age in some aspects. But let's talk about it. Like, Ken's musical number is fantastic, and I do thoroughly enjoy it. Written by the one and only, or wrote or written, I always get that wrong, never know which one it is, by Mark Ronson, who said when he made it initially, he kind of thought it wouldn't have very much impact, but then when Ryan Gosling performed it the way he did, it kind of took on this whole new level of, like, genuine heartache and, like, issues going with it. It's a banger.
It's incredible. Like, he's in general just incredible. Like, I think that he, for the guy that he is, he doesn't take himself too seriously, which
good fun.
I love. Yep. He's really good value just in terms of, like, I think obviously he's learned a lot from La La Land and the way he performed.
Well, he's a Disney kid, wasn't he, originally?
Yeah. Mate, I'm creasing at him. He's so funny in all of this. The scene when him and do you know what? It's really important to actually, like, talk about the other Ken as well. I say the other Ken. There's lots of other Kens, but Simu Liu is brilliant. And so when him and Ryan Gosling are having the dance off, sing off, whatever, it's just brilliant. Like, it's just really fun, and there's nothing to. I don't know, like, I love it. Like, it's just, he's brilliant.
It also reminded me when I was talking about mid-2000s of Anchorman, that kind of, like, bright, colourful, and, like, things kind of just happen, but they don't fully make sense, but you just go with it. Like, why do all the news anchors fight in Anchorman? Like, you don't know what the prime beef is, they just get on with it. And I love all that kind of stuff to it. And, like, again, that's a film that's got some message somewhere, but at the end of the day, you can just see it as a stupid comedy.
As the kids say, mate, as the kids say, and we're not kids anymore, it's not that deep. Like, it's really not that deep.
It is what you make of it. If you want to get that upset by it, you can.
Yeah,
but
show your beans, man.
Yeah, there's some fantastic performances. I've seen some complaints about the I've forgotten the actress's name. Real World.
Real World.
And her daughter. Like,
McKinnon.
Yeah, and I've seen there's been.
Why? Real World. Sorry, Real World. You're talking about America Ferrera and Ariana Greenblatt.
Yeah, people were complaining about the fact, like, the film slows down with them, or it feels like a different movie. I don't feel like it does. I feel like it's the crux of the film and, like, getting that relationship across. I think, like, it's quite threadbare in terms of I think it doesn't. Do you know what? No, I take that back. It doesn't visually show or spell out, like, the decline in their relationship or why the mum feels the way she does. And, like, the husband's shown to be a bit dopey, but when there's no implication he's bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, it shows him playing Duolingo all the time or whatever.
Yeah, do you know what? But I do think a lot about how bad this film could have been. This film could have been a disaster, like, because
I do like the fact I think Mattel weirdly get absolutely bashed in it, but also it talks about all the inspiring things Barbie's done too over the years, so it kind of gets, like, best of both worlds. I know Mark Kermode talks about
Got
this.
discontinued very quickly.
And we need to talk about Michael Cera coming in and just smashing people up, because that was good fun when he was doing his Scott Pilgrim fight sequence.
Alan.
Yeah, Alan. Thoroughly enjoyed that. He's good fun. I'm glad he's back around. But didn't he?
I need him to see. I need to see him. I just need to see Michael Cera be Michael Cera. You know.
Yeah, he looks like he's enjoying himself. But the thing for this film, everyone looks like they're enjoying themselves. There's a lot of production design and things to really appreciate. Like Barbie's outfits are all incredible, as you'd expect. Like everyone's immaculately dressed. It was a bit weird for me seeing so many of the guys from a Sex Education all in one place at once. I don't know if you watched that show on Netflix.
No, I haven't. But
Emma Mackey and the new Doctor Who.
So it's funny, right? So Emma Mackey was originally in this because everyone talks about how Emma Mackey.
She looks like Margot Robbie. Yeah.
And apparently, when Margot and I hate when people do that. I don't know her. So I didn't.
When Margot Robbie
and Emma Mackey both dressed up, they look completely different. So and to be fair, in the film they look completely different. So
it's like Katy Perry and Zooey Deschanel. Everyone says they look so similar, but it's like in some photos, I'm sure they do, but like in general, no. So yeah, I mean, Jamie, I've got a question for you, which was sent in, which is, what would be your Ken profession?
Kims.cinema.escape asks what my Ken profession would be. Right, so I know it sounds mental. I mean, my number one profession would probably just be beach, you know? Like, I think I don't think that's allowed. I'd be very happy to just be beach.
You burn so easily, you'd be done in a day.
Well, speaking of man-hating, here I am, ginger man, like, and I'm being bullied. Yeah, I think you're right. I would like to be movie critic Ken. Hot movie critic.
You're already doing it.
Hold on. Hot movie critic, and I have a 6-pack from just watching movies. Okay. Rockstar Ken. I'd love to be
Rockstar Ken. I can see. Yeah.
As you know, I thoroughly enjoy just making music, that kind of thing. I say making music. I don't make that much anymore, but I enjoy music. So I would love to be a rock star and actually just be a rock star in real life. And to be honest, I don't think why can't I be Beach Ken? I want to be permanently on holiday. And now, I would. Yeah, I'd use a shade though.
Yeah.
I would, and in my patriarchy Ken, I would just have Barbie standing over me, just shielding me from the sun.
And on that note, I went for convertible Ken, as in I already. Yeah, because.
What?
Well, just like
what's convertible Ken?
I've made it up. Well, I'm sure Barbie had a car which Ken just drove.
I've made it up.
Yeah, I swear. No, listen. Cool, hear me out. I'm pretty sure Ken had a car at some point. It was a soft top that he drove with Barbie, so I'd just be doing that, just cruising around.
You had a soft top, didn't you?
Exactly. So it's literally just doing what I did before. Yeah.
Convertible John.
Convertible John, because whatever. So there we go.
Is that it?
I think
was that all you were gonna say?
Well, yeah, I just drive around in a convertible. I didn't want to say beach and be basic and just copy the film. So
okay, well, David Ellis writes in and he asks, cast anyone as Ken, anyone as Barbie, and anyone to replace Will Ferrell as the CEO of Mattel. So when David wrote this in, he did actually say that he meant any Ken or any Barbie. Doesn't mean like Margot.
Not the specific ones.
I don't know her. Maybe it's me just manifesting it.
You want Leonardo DiCaprio in there, don't you, as a Ken? I think that'd be.
It didn't even cross my mind.
Be great to see him do like a slightly like downtrodden Ken. Would be good fun. And then I don't know about other Barbies because I feel like everyone was already in there.
I've got one.
Go on.
I've got a banger.
Go for it.
Right, so I've got all of them. So as Ken, now David, I know that you quite like the boys, so let me give you this. And you also spoke about a more biting like theme of Barbie. How about Anthony Starr, Homelander from The Boys? How about a really dark version of him as Ken? Because he's great as a blonde.
Quite also psychotic in it as well.
Yeah. Completely psychotic Ken, taking over Barbie Land and doing some really mean things in our 18+ rated, X-rated Barbie movie that's definitely never going to get made and not make £1 billion. I have the CEO. Do you have a CEO?
Instead of Will Ferrell, I love Will Ferrell. I wouldn't change him for the world. But yeah, go on, you go.
My CEO is Tom Cruise, but Tom Cruise.
Oh, like he is in Tropic Thunder.
Character. Yes. You get my notes.
No, I just.
Listen,
we're on the same page.
Him, Tropic Thunder, Tom Cruise is money, and then Barbie. You're gonna like this, John.
Go.
1980s Elizabeth Shue.
Okay, so you go.
1980s Elizabeth Shue is my Barbie. That is basically. I mean, I'm essentially just replacing Margot Robbie, but yeah, Margot Robbie is the perfect Barbie. When I was thinking of others, like I don't really know who else I'd like to be Barbie. When I think of Barbie, I think of what everyone else thinks, and I think of just
the casting in this film is great, and I think Margot Robbie does a great job of embodying all the different things that Barbie represents, and also genuine growth. I mean, people might be like, "Oh, she plays a plastic character," and blah blah blah, but she, as I said, she's essentially having an existential crisis and conveying that basically just through close-ups of her having lots of crying, much like in Oppenheimer, which we're not going quite onto yet, but that is basically lots of close-ups of faces.
Listen, the first female-directed movie to ever gross £1 billion. Let's not Captain Marvel, co-directed by Anna Boden. It does feel a little cruel that people have written her off, actually. So Anna Boden co-wrote and directed Captain Marvel, and also made £1 billion. But Greta Gerwig, we can say, is the first solo female director to gross £1 billion. Well done, Greta Gerwig.
I have a complaint about the Barbie film.
Complain to me, John.
I wanted to hear the original song in its full glory.
No, I didn't know.
And I was in my head, I expected it, and when I didn't get it, I was a little bit disappointed.
Is it
there was it's like a remix version with someone else, and I'm just yeah,
the credits definitely. Anyway,
come on, Barbie, let's go party.
Do you know what's funny, right? If I had the time, and I really don't, I was actually going to do a remixed. At the beginning of the pod, I was going to go, "Hey Johnny," and do a remix version of that. But
yeah, he's still got time. He's doing the edit this week. He's got plenty to cut as well. He's had the laggiest internet ever. He's done about 5 different cuts so far. So here you go, listeners. Try and work out the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cuts that have been in so far. If you send us the correct time codes, we'll buy you a drink when we next see you. There you go.
59 episodes in, right? And we've never had trouble like this. This is
once before. I can remember the episode it was as well. But yeah, anyway, hey ho, early doors.
Early doors. This is yeah. Well, this the first one. This is the worst one I can remember. Anyway,
I'm just looking through our notes. Sorry, Jamie. The next few questions that I've got down here, I feel like I'm related to both films. So I think potentially once we've wrapped up Barbie, we'll go on to Op for the other questions. Do you agree? Or have I missed
Kate
one?
Kate Reviews Films writes in and she says, "Well, it's not a question for John because I feel like he hasn't seen them."
No, it's not.
Greta Gerwig movies.
So apologies on this one. This is the only Greta Gerwig film I have seen. So Jamie, take the stage.
Well, look, this is people aren't going to like this. Well, I don't really care what people like. I don't even know if they'll like it. I've seen 3 films of hers, and obviously it's the main ones. It's Barbie, Little Women, Lady Bird. Now, when I rank them, I would say that they're all fantastic. I would give Little Women number 1. I think Little Women's amazing, even if Timothée Chalamet's in it. Given the worst performance for me from Timothée Chalamet, but as everyone knows, I've warmed to him a little bit more. So there we go.
Dune.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been told to watch The King, but I won't. I will at some point probably. I tried to watch Bones and All the other night, and everyone's buzzing off it, and I just don't like it. I didn't even finish it. Listen, Little Women number 1, I think it's absolutely superb. Then Lady Bird number 2, then Barbie number 3. Barbie is, although it's the highest grossing film, probably I think it's her 3rd best. They're all brilliant though. What am I gonna say? Hey,
fair enough.
Anyway, you free punters are getting lots for you're getting a lot for your money lately, which is obviously nothing. Because you pay nothing to listen to this, but 4 minutes in probably. Guess what? It is time to move on, and we've got lots of interesting discussion about this badger as well. We're talking about Oppenheimer from 2023. If you didn't know, by a little man called Christopher Nolan.
This is a national emergency.
Detonator charged.
We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
I don't know why I called him a little boy. I didn't mean that, Chris. If you ever come on the pod,
Chris.
Oh yeah, do you know
First
what?
name
First
base.
name terms of
Just
everyone.
stop it.
Who
Stop
cares?
it.
Who cares? Right, what's Oppenheimer about then? I guess I better tell you. So, the film follows the life of Robert Oppenheimer, his education, his breakthroughs, his relationships, and eventually his creation of the atomic bomb, and his closed trial afterwards. So that's what it's about. It's a biopic about a bomb.
I mean, it about the creation of the atomic bomb. It's pretty important, but yeah, it's
3 hours long, based on American Prometheus, which is a book. It's about the triumph and tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, 2005 biography of theoretical physicist by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin. So it is based on that. It's obviously based on the man. It's 3 hours long. John, we watched it together.
Yeah, so we touched on this very briefly in the last episode with Beck, but my thoughts on it were, for a 3 hour film, it has great pacing. And by that I mean it's jumping around in time, but you're clear of where it is in time.
Jumping around in time. Weird.
Don't start. We'll get into it. And yeah, essentially it uses music to propel that. And I have critiqued the fact that I thought at times it was like, audience, are you paying attention? We're going to play more music, so make it more interesting. To keep you engaged, I should say, rather than more interesting, because it is interesting. But yeah, it does a good job of the first hour. Is almost like a montage, it feels like, but it keeps it moving at just the right pace to keep everything going. And then we've got questions about the score, which I'll get into later. The first thing for me to say about any of this is you've got Cillian Murphy playing Oppenheimer at 3 different stages of his life, and he does such a fantastic job. And seeing in him the haunted, vacant expression of someone who regrets their actions but will never openly admit or apologise for them is fascinating. And also, he's one of those people that when he, at the start, when he's younger, he still looks really young, but then when they make him look old later, it also suits him. And I just can't really describe why, but he's just got one of those faces that just suits.
He basically, he really does look like a guy that's been trying to have a scientific breakthrough for many years.
Yeah, he's ready.
Whoops, he looks done by the end of it. Well, we're keeping that in. The amount of editing I've got to do, it's staying in. Sorry.
It's all right, mate. I wrote it
Not
down
suitable
for you.
for children.
But yeah, essentially, it's about the. It's interesting that everyone thought this film would solely be about the creation of the bomb. Was actually the creation of the bomb is probably there's still another hour of the film after that part in my mind, because it's interested in the like in The Dark Knight. There's the famous like what's the quote about you live long enough, you'll see yourself become the villain, right? Yeah, so you start off as the hero and then blah blah blah. Essentially, Oppenheimer's kind of sounds bad to compare it to Dark Knight, but there's like a similar thing to it, which is initially he's needed, so the government like herald him and like give him everything he wants, and initially, and then essentially when they're done with him, they throw him out and outcast him. And then he only comes back into the fold and is celebrated later. But yeah, a general background on Oppenheimer. I'm not going to try and explain the whole biography of Oppenheimer because you can't, and there's a lot to go at. But essentially, the Americans didn't like the fact that he had communist views and had a brother who was sympathetic to communist views. His representation in the film is the fact that he wasn't a communist, but he just had ideas of he was open to all interpretations, and
he mad, mate.
And he met people in his life who were open to them too. Sorry, go on.
Well, it's mad that like Barbie and Oppenheimer actually have a lot in common in terms of politics, and in terms of like why do we have to be pigeonholed into this thing where he's got communist views, so therefore blah blah blah. Like, you know what? We can all have like whatever views we want, and so like it's the same as like Barbenheimer's. And I didn't mention earlier on about like the left and right wing kind of suggestions around that film, but it's actually mostly, if we were to categorize them, which I didn't want to, but here I am. If we were to categorize them, it is most of the right-wing political people that are crying about Barbie, the ones that always cry about like woke stuff and snowflakes and being offended, and they're the ones being offended. It's the same thing like with Oppenheimer. He was completely like chastised for being linked to any kind of communism, so automatically the USA thought he was kind of in cahoots with Russia, right?
Yeah, and I think important history lesson on that side, very brief one for me and my very, very general knowledge. But at that point in the 60s especially, so like people were blacklisted in Hollywood for having connections, like communist connections, or being seen as potential communists. So the writer of Spartacus is the only real story I know about it, and someone who suffered in the McCarthyism era was someone who was whoever wrote the script for Spartacus, I believe, and Kirk Douglas fought for his name to be on the end credits for years and years, etc., etc. Right. I'm butchering that story, but anyway. So yeah, Oppenheimer being in the power he was and having the say he had in American defense, I think they were if there was even a slight inkling they thought he was a communist or on the side of the Russians, they were going to oust him, which they did, and that's what Robert Downey Jr.'s character plays off throughout the film. But yeah, it's interesting that Christopher Nolan took that perspective on it, in the sense of it wasn't just about, it was advertised as the creation of the bomb, but actually it's about everything that happened after, and shows that although he doesn't outright at any point apologise for what he did, his actions, this is Christopher Nolan's interpretation, has always been his actions showed deep regret and remorse from what he tried to do. So he's quite naive in the film, like he says, you know, if we build this bomb it will end all wars, not really thinking that, and you know until they build another bomb bigger. Yeah. And like I think maybe it really tries to get you into the mindset of how he thought about it. And interesting that the scientists don't call it a bomb, do they? They call it the device, or they call it something, or the gadget. They call it the gadget throughout because they don't really want to think about what the actual outcome for it is. So yeah, it's fascinating. All the I know some people have got criticisms about the film, but the parts that worked for me were Christopher Nolan is very good at building tension, and the sequence of when the first test is happening in the desert and the build up to it and the countdown. You know how that test goes, but it still manages through the editing decisions, through the pacing, the music, and all of it to make you stress and feel. It reminded me of like the boat sequence in The Dark Knight, when it's like, are they going to, and it's like the two ferries, and it's like, will the people on the ferry pull the trigger to kill the civilians, or will the civilians pull the trigger to kill the people on the ferry? The prisoners. Yeah. But anyway, it's building up that tension. And yeah, I think it's such a hard, like, so much happens in Oppenheimer, it's really hard to kind of narrow down, get your thoughts in on it. But my thought on it was, it got you questioning a lot of different things by the end of the film, because there's a point in history where, before they tested the first bomb, there was an idea was, if we test this bomb, it could literally burn the atmosphere and start a chain reaction that would never stop and end everything. And the crux of the film focuses on, Oppenheimer takes this maths, this theory to Albert Einstein, and he's like, he reads it and he's depressed because when he sees him years later, after Oppenheimer's let off the bomb, he said, I showed you that equation, and I feel like we did start that reaction. So the world might not have burned up on that day, but I feel like I've created the thing, but that's going to be the end of things, is essentially the takeaway from it.
Yeah, and this is why the book is called American Prometheus, and what that means is that, so Bird began. So Bird, Kai Bird, the guy that wrote the book, began the presentation by calling Oppenheimer a modern version of the legendary Prometheus, because he too, after stealing the fire from the gods, so Prometheus stole the fire from the gods,
Gave it to man.
Yeah, was publicly tried for his actions, and so
He was eaten alive by crows like every day for thousands of years, and then he re-healed, so every day he had to suffer the same pain.
yeah,
Greek mythology, baby.
It's a you're.
I love
John
Greek
knows
mythology.
Lots about Greek mythology. This is, for me, it's a great film, and I am going to sit here and criticize it though. It's great. Like, I think it's solid. It's a solid 8 out of 10. I don't really understand what the masterpiece. A lot of people throwing around the word masterpiece again, which I do find strange.
What I think the masterpiece tag's been thrown to it because, right, say the framing of it is very much David Fincher's The Social Network. It's a court
I'm so
case.
glad you mentioned that, because can I just say quickly, this is a biopic, right? My main issue, and by the way, I think Christopher Nolan is unreal, and we're so lucky to have him. I'm so pleased that he's still making films. I'm so pleased that he's going to continue making films. Let me just say this. This is a biopic. Then the biopics that I've seen that I think are fantastic are stuff like Tick, Tick, Boom, Elvis, Rocketman, Bohemian Rhapsody, Raging Bull, Braveheart, and most notably, The Social Network. Great biopic. The reason why I think these are great is because they're very easy to follow. They're very easy to understand films. I think what attracts people to Nolan's work is obviously the way his films are beautifully photographed, which we will talk about, his use of practical effects, the grandness of his films.
Complexity as well, though.
The complexity which comes usually through the use of non-linear storytelling, which I believe was once a great strength in his filmmaking. I now find it to be to his detriment. In his last couple of films specifically, it's almost like he needs to do it this way, and I think Nolan fans like to feel smart when appreciating his films. I'm not dissing Nolan fans. I love his work. However, his recent work, specifically Tenet,
yeah. But don't
Oppenheimer now, it feels overly contrived, overly complicated.
I disagree. I feel like he's going for that Rosebud moment. So, Citizen Kane, right? He's going for that moment and that reveal and what it means. And
I've never seen it, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm on a film podcast and I've never seen it.
Embarrassment. But essentially, it's like...
What are you going to do about it?
He's revisiting a key... And he does it in every film. He does it in Inception. He's revisiting a key scene or a key moment in someone's life.
The spinning top.
Yeah, it's... it keeps visiting the time his wife was about to die in Inception.
Right.
So he's revisiting... a same scene over and over again, but recontextualizing it, and it means more to the audience each time. By the end, you get the true context. So that when you have your rewatch, you know all along. But it's just that's the journey he takes you on. It keeps you guessing through that 3 hours. So I think it's a very specific style. I know why people don't like it. It doesn't bother me. It is just I associate it with him now. That is his thing. So I'm not gonna. I don't really want it to change, because I did feel like, and maybe I should save this when we're doing the film ranking, but Tenet for me was kind of a George Lucas Star Wars prequel situation, which is you've done so well for so many things that people around you start nodding, saying, yes, you're the greatest, and I agree with every single thing you say and every decision, was actually you probably need that slight bit of pushback or someone to disagree with you or give you an alternative opinion. And he didn't really have that, and I feel like it was overly complicated, and like audiences, it was exposition dump, and I think it annoyed people, to be honest. And I feel like Oppenheimer was a massive return to form, but obviously the fact the story itself being a true...
I'm surprised at this. I
think I enjoyed it more than you, which is actually interesting. So at the time, I didn't think that was the case.
This is an 8 out of 10, but he's not getting away with it. He's not getting away with it.
I think I just feel like whether you like it or not, we had this chat about Snyder. Whether you like it or not, the decision and everything is tailored to fit around that narrative choice of non-linear and having like revisiting that key scene and it meaning different things throughout. So essentially, it's the meeting with Einstein. Robert Downey Jr.'s character is obsessed with the fact that the reason Einstein doesn't like him or didn't speak to him at the university was because he was badmouthed by Oppenheimer, which is complete nonsense. Actually, it was about the equation and about the burning of the atmosphere, which we've just discussed. And essentially, the film's, like, his downfall, Robert Downey Jr.'s character's downfall, is all on the basis of a lie that he thought Oppenheimer was working against him, so he spent his whole time trying to ruin his career, was actually he wasn't doing anything of the sort. He humiliated him publicly and not backed him on a scientific research or something previous. Again, it's so complicated, I don't want to misquote and like get things wrong, but essentially it's a film about jealousy and someone doing the wrong thing to shaft someone else, and essentially it all being for nothing. So basically all the years that Cillian Murphy's character of Oppenheimer suffered was because of something that wasn't really true all along. But look, I think without getting lost in the Nolanness of it, I think one thing Nolan's been criticised before has been about the portrayal of women in his films. Do you feel like this film has changed that? Like, I thought Emily Blunt...
No. Okay,
I'm going to say before
paragraph on
okay, before we step into that, my favourite scene is when Oppenheimer was basically, in inverted commas, on trial, or his case for like working out if he can basically in the is it 50s or 60s he was told he had to reapply for his security clearance, and essentially he wasn't going to have it again because they thought he was a communist. So instead of giving him a public space because he was such a celebrity, they interview him in this like crappy office in the back of some nowhere place in the US, and his wife at the time is Emily Blunt, is sat there and she gets annoyed at him because she's like, why are you taking all this punishment? Why are you letting them say all these things about you? And it's because he's guilty for what he's done for creating the atomic bomb, essentially, and he feels like...
So he should be.
And he basically sits there and takes it all. But she gets her moment where she defends him, herself, and the life they've chosen and all the decisions she's made. And like she snaps back at them and like, basically says this whole thing is a sham, and you know it's a sham, and like, you know. And I thought it was a really great moment. But Jamie, go on, tell me, like, do you feel like Christopher Nolan still has an issue with female characters, which is also something that was levelled at David Fincher for a very long time, until probably Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and the Gone Girl?
I mean, he might not have an issue with them. I think the way he writes them is probably quite poor. So, I mean, what I would say is, I think Emily Blunt's character, is it Kitty?
I believe so, yeah.
Kitty Oppenheimer, who he marries, I think she's great. She's complex.
I love
powerful.
Emily Blunt.
Yeah, she's powerful. Like, she's great. Emily Blunt is just great in everything. My problem is that I found that I was disappointed with Florence Pugh's role. So you basically have
4 minutes screen time, you reckon? Less than?
Probably maybe 10.
I don't think it's that much.
Okay.
He has that
maybe
quick chat with her at the start. She has the kind of saying...
She has sex with him.
Yeah, while reading
sits on the
Sanskrit
toilet
of being the destroyer of worlds.
And then she commits suicide.
Well, or was she killed by the government?
Yeah, okay, cool. So we will talk about that. That's good. Thanks, Sean.
Sorry.
Hey, look at us doing research. So I think that he does have an issue writing female characters. I just don't think they're very good, very complex. Most of the time they serve as a reason for two men to have some kind of clash.
Rachel!
Yeah. You
Dark Knight reference, guys.
Well, so she's terrible. We have Scarlett Johansson, who I barely even remember in The Prestige. And then we've also got, which was definitely his worst, is Elizabeth Debicki in Tenet, which she was basically there as a damsel in distress, there to be bullied by her husband and abused by her husband. Now you have taken Florence Pugh, who speaks very complimentary about Chris Nolan, by the way. You've taken Florence Pugh though, right? Who is, in my opinion, probably the greatest working actress today. You've taken her, and you have basically, she was there to be naked. She was there to...
I don't think that's true, Jay. I feel like...
Mate, her role was atrocious. She's there and she does nothing. She's there, she has sex with him, and then she kills herself.
But in real life, that lady was as it says in American Prometheus, the book, like, I don't know, like, I wasn't there, but essentially it shaped his life, and the loss of her shaped his focus.
Cool. So get this. I didn't get that from the film. So if that's what
he has an emotional breakdown and sods off on a horse in the middle because she's died.
He sits against a tree. Like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. You've got so for me, you've had 3 hours. You've had 3 hours, and that is not good enough for Florence Pugh. Or anyone. Like, she's a plot device. She's a plot device.
You say she's a plot device. It's a person in real life, and there's someone that shaped his life. So I feel like...
Well, do you know what? Give her more credit then. So if that's someone in his life, then Christopher Nolan needs to give her more credit, more screen time, and more complexity as a character, rather than just have her as someone that is quite interesting for the 10 minutes that she's on, but essentially is on screen for... Well, I was actually being generous. I was like, oh, 10 minutes.
It probably is 10 because she meets him at the party at the start. They have a meeting later on where they catch up, and then it's after she's died, and then his wife sees her and him having sex in her head while they're in mid-trial because she's like haunted by it. But look,
anyway, what you were saying was that like there was talk that and
it's hinted at in the film.
Very clever. So I am criticising. I'm playing devil's advocate. I enjoyed the film. At the same time, like, yeah, there's a lot of very clever stuff going on as well. So what I would say is that we do see Florence Pugh's character. We think she commits suicide.
It shows shots of her implying she committed suicide, but there's another shot which shows gloves holding her head down into the water. But you don't know, because it's when Oppenheimer sees it from his perspective, so we don't know if that's him thinking they've done that or if they genuinely have, and I suppose we'll never know.
Well, but there was a lot of news around that. So there was a lot of news around the fact that maybe is it the CIA? I think the CIA may have killed her, like, so that because they want to keep Oppenheimer
on target,
on task. So
he was bed hopping around according to this film as well. There's some funny moments of him talking about his bed hopping.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think the film's great. I think that at the same time, does a biopic need to jump all over the place like this? So
well, yeah, because the Social Network did. I feel like I think it does, because I feel like gone are the days of where you just go. I personally, I suppose I could have seen it go all the way through and it be more like a theory of everything, you know, like the Eddie Redmayne one, which is also a very, very good film, by the way, and with a great performance. But I feel like it's more interesting to do it the way he's done it. I don't think there's any two ways about it. And like, I feel like there'd be moments in the film where it felt like you're trapped in one section for so long, and I think by doing it the way he's done it, it takes away from that. But what I feel like, again, it's been advertised on the fact it's all about the building of the bomb, and I feel like the building of the bomb is about a third of the film, maybe 2/3.
But I think that for me, like, I think that we're seeing the beginning, a middle, and the end of the film intertwining. I think it's a little bit messy. It's 3 hours.
I don't think it's messy. I think that's
a subject not a lot of people know about. So, and I say this,
the McCarthyism's lost on people. Some people have been like, it wasn't clear any of that section. Like, there needs to be more text at the start, and I feel like that's fair. But Christopher Nolan said this thing the other day, and I'm sure I quoted it on the last pod, which was, if you don't understand it, just try and feel it. And I feel like he always does manage to do that. And you're shaking your head at me. I know, but I think it's a fair point. Like, if you can't take everything in, just go along with like what the characters are feeling, because that's what it's about anyway, rather than fully understanding every single thing at every moment.
Yeah, but
look, like that's just what I can't believe I'm defending this much, because I didn't even like love it that much. Like, you're making out like I absolutely adored it now. But
no.
Yeah,
You're the one that's defending it like you absolutely
I know, I don't know
adored it.
why, but it's just, anyway, look, I think there's...
It's just like when it's like writing, right? I say this all the time. Like, things are allowed to be clever, but I think things that are the most clever are the things that allow the biggest audience to understand it.
Oh,
Like
okay then, but on the flip side of that argument, when you just complained about Barbie, the part you complained about was the part when it tried to make everyone understand its key messages through one soliloquy. So, like, you know,
Touché,
like, yeah.
John.
So it's have your cake and eat it. Look, we're all hypocrites at times, but I just, yeah, it's
Call me a hypocrite.
yeah, I am.
Listen to us arguing.
But it's just interesting, isn't it, how different films can elicit such different responses, but the complaints are like completely juxtaposing what you've said on the other one. But look, it is what it is. I'm just tearing you down on that one.
Shut up, John.
But anyway, I think we need to talk about some of the other performances. So Cillian Murphy, I feel like I've paid dues to on the fact of, like, he is fantastic throughout. And
look
like,
at my face. Please, can you zoom your...
Jamie,
Can you please zoom your IMAX camera into my face?
But
Look
it's
at my
great to
lines.
see. Matt Damon's fantastic in it, but I also love to see Josh Hartnett back. I mean, what a throwback. After we talked about Pearl Harbor last week as well.
Can I just say,
Go on.
I've never seen a scientist that good looking
In
my life.
I'm sure they exist.
In my life.
Well,
sure there is, yeah,
because you only watch Hollywood films where they always have to
What
be
they
like...
need to do,
dark.
those, do you know what they need to do? They need to take the glasses off, and all of us, and automatically they'd be really good looking.
Or
and the only reason, no, that
like every 80s film ever made,
yeah.
where they always take the glasses off and they're stunning.
Yeah, every 90s rom-com where, like, a girl gets a makeover, she takes her glasses off, beautiful.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, I find, I'm sorry, I can't believe that we've got to the position where I'm the one defending it this much. And, like, don't get me wrong, when you hear my list and, like, ranking of Christopher Nolan films, it's probably not as high as people are going to expect after the way I've talked about it, but I love historic flicks. I think they're interesting, and, like, we haven't even talked about the whole thing about certain parts of this film in black and white. My read on that was, I don't know if this is correct, that everything you see in colour is from the perspective of Oppenheimer. When it's in black and white, it's from the perspective of Robert Downey Jr.'s character, because he sees it as more factual and just different.
So yeah,
I don't know if that's right, and, like, I'm happy to be wrong if I am wrong, but that's just how I saw it at the time. I've tried not to super read up on it afterwards, because I did what Nolan said. I just felt it, even if I didn't understand it.
That's what happens when you're making films that are that convoluted, because you're such a high class director that no one asks questions anymore, that you can just tell people to feel it. Anyway, I did read so I was looking into the cinematography of this, and obviously you mentioned in the black and white comes with that. One thing, did this need to be seen in IMAX? Probably, I don't think so. I think the bomb test scene is incredible. There's zero CGI in this film, which...
That's not true. It's like, we need to correct
CGI.
this. There is
Chris Nolan.
No.
Says that there's
I know what he
no
likes to say and how he
CGI.
markets it, but if you look at the end of that film, there are hundreds of special effects. CGI is in, there's not computer generated from scratch. There's practical effects which uses CG to hide wires or hide cables, or to, like, digitally add matte paintings to stuff. It happens all the time. I feel like we are in this...
Then? So why is he saying there's no CGI?
He means, my interpretation of when he says that is, he means computer generated imagery from scratch, but all those films require some form of digitally removing things or extending sets or, like, changing things here or there. If you look at the end titles of the film, there's a whole section of special effects artists that work at CG houses. So, and it's same said about Barbie. People are like, oh, there's no CGI in Barbie. It's like, yes, there is. Like, there's CGI in everything, because, like, even basic After Effects and, like, cutting certain layers out and making things appear different ways is CG. Just getting that across. There's less CG there than a Marvel film. Yes, it's not all on green screen. They're not doing this and that. And they do a lot practically, and that's fantastic. But we are obsessed with saying there's no CG in the film. It's like, there is. It's just used cleverly. It's used in a very small, hands-off approach to aid what's physically there, rather than being like, oh, a lot of films, they go, do you know what, like we'll think about that sequence after, we can change it in CG, we can change it after. Like Nolan doesn't do that. He shoots it all as it needs to be shot and gets that across. But you still need to digitally remove. If you've got an explosion and there's like someone jumping and there's a wire, there's not in Oppenheimer, but just in general, like you have to digitally remove that wire, right? There's always something which needs tweaking or changing.
Yeah, man, they digitally removed Florence Pugh's character, apparently. Anyway,
they covered her up in the foreign releases, so there you go. There's some CGI for you straight away.
Well, look, I did look at the cinematography for this because I did find it quite interesting. IndieWire. So this was an article I read from IndieWire. They said, to help achieve a more intimate spectacle, redefining portraits and close-ups for 70mm IMAX, Nolan divided the film into separate perspectives and timelines. He called Oppenheimer's fission in colour and Strauss fusion in black and white, in keeping with the quantum physics theme. This was a 3-hour-long movie about faces. Van Hoytema, who is the cinematographer, told IndieWire, and our challenge was to be able to get closer with the camera to make these faces become our landscape, and to make those faces interesting enough for the audience to become captivated by them. However,
which Cillian Murphy does do.
He unreal. We'll talk about that in a sec. Unreal. However, shooting close-ups in IMAX was harder, technically, than capturing the vistas of Los Alamos, New Mexico, where Oppenheimer oversaw the creation of the atomic bomb as part of the Manhattan Project. Van Hoytema usually relied on tight 80mm lenses for close-ups, but he needed to get closer than 6 feet for greater intimacy. With no available lenses, Panavision lens specialist Dan Sasek supplied and adapted Hasselblad, Panavision Sphero 65 and Panavision System 65 lenses for Oppenheimer. So there's loads of lenses being made.
Essentially, custom lenses being made to allow them to get better close-ups on IMAX, because IMAX is traditionally used for sequences that are action-orientated, which wouldn't have close-ups in the same respect.
I have one more fact. In order for the black and white sections of the movie to be shot in the same quality as the rest of the film, Kodak, who almost went out... I'll tell you a funny story about Kodak in a sec. That's what happens when you study business. Kodak developed the first ever black and white film stock for IMAX. So Kodak, funny as hell, Kodak famously, just like BlackBerry, were a company that were like, cool, you know what, we're gonna stick with everyone knows a Kodak instant camera, right, with actual film in it. Kodak were one of those companies that were like, they almost went out of business, but they were like, we're not going to go anywhere near digital because actually people are purists and they're going to stick with film. So they decided to not go with digital. Same as BlackBerry. So the reason why BlackBerry, there's an actual documentary / film / biopic out on it this year. The reason why BlackBerry is not a thing anymore, and it was the biggest thing ever, was because BlackBerry decided that they were like, yeah, we're not going to do touch screens. Well, guess what? Whoopsie. Anyway, Kodak survived, so they developed the first ever black and white film stock for IMAX, which is pretty interesting, right? It's a great looking film. Should it be IMAX, John?
I mean, any film that's being filmed at that resolution and for preserving sake, it's going to look fantastic for many, many generations, so I'm more than happy with it. The question people are asking they associate IMAX with big spectacle and big set pieces, and let's be honest, this film doesn't have that aside from that sequence, which is a lot. It's a lot of men talking in rooms for a long time, isn't it? It is. But guess what? They're interesting conversations, and I mean the fact that it makes you start thinking about when you realise how many nuclear weapons there are in the world and how they're all out there, and the film makes a good point of showing how the people in charge of these weapons throughout are just like what's the word I'm trying to say, nitpicking people who are trying to tear each other apart over jealousy and whatever else, and like how crap they are. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? Bit nuts.
I mean, I would say that. So I've said my piece on the things that I didn't like. There's a lot of things that I did like.
Go for it. Tell me things you liked.
Look, a film hasn't probably made me feel so cold in a long time. Like I walked away from it and I was...
Makes you think.
Yeah, I was very aware of my mortality for quite a long time. I'm like, do you know what? This is insane. And I'm not really interested in war that much. Like I say that, like I'm just not really that interested in that genre of film or war in general, because not a good thing, right? Obviously. And the fact that we have this film is important because it shows that a man has devoted his whole life, or a very large portion of his life, a very intelligent man, probably one of the most intelligent men to walk the earth. Like, they've figured out how to split the atom, and with that, they've done an incredibly dangerous thing. And so, for me, it's terrifying that we're watching a man essentially create something that could destroy the entire world. It's troubling. It's hard to explain, like, and the way Cillian Murphy kind of portrays, I think that it's weird because I have seen some, again, more discourse around this, that like Oppenheimer's scum, blah blah blah. Like, this film is very sympathetic towards Oppenheimer.
I in some respects, I feel like it doesn't try to say it does it from his perspective, doesn't it? It shows the world through his eyes, in the sense of, like, we don't even see what goes down at Nagasaki or Hiroshima. No, because and like, I've saw people complain about that, and I'm like, the whole point is you're seeing it from exactly.
We don't need to see it.
No, because you're seeing it from his perspective, and he was waiting for that news and like to know what they'd done with the thing he'd created got taken away. Then he had no idea what was going on with it. They like, you'll find out when you find out, kind of thing. And the best scene for me, for Cillian Murphy, for me, is when he goes to meet Gary Oldman as the president, and he says, "I feel like I have blood on my hands." And like, the president's just like, "Get the crybaby out of here."
Yeah.
And it's just like, we're the ones making the decisions. It's basically sod all to do with you. So just kind of, get on with it. And it's just like, I think he realizes when it's too late. You became so fixated on the task, you kind of lost the meaning of what the task was actually representing and what it was going to do. And I feel like in that one scene, he really conveys that. But he's like tortured throughout. Like, Cillian Murphy's eyes are fantastic. Like, he's always got the way of kind of being able to show his inner turmoil of like his decisions, and how they how like his brain's thinking on two tracks, which is like, scientifically he's like, I have to do this and I want to get there. And even like after the war, like when the Germans are retreating, Hitler's died, and they don't know what the Japanese are going to do. There's the argument of, do they even need to drop the bomb? And like, he's so conflicted, but then he's like, we've got this far. Like, it's so interesting. I want to go on to a question, but I don't know who sent it in. Can we talk about the music from Oppenheimer, because it links really well to what we're talking about right now, please?
Yeah, so David Ellis writes in, and he says, and this is a great question, by the way, because we spoke about this slightly on the last pod. Can you discuss the use of music and editing as a tool to explore the character of Oppenheimer, his state of mind, and his thoughts about the universe and time? Mm-hmm. John, you've got some stuff to say.
So yeah, I as I said, we talked last week about kind of music for how it pushed the narrative along, and like pacing and story-wise, but we're looking at it from a different perspective. The music, we hear the music from Oppenheimer's perspective, so there's like some digital elements which sounds like the fusion going on and like the breaking of the atom, and like he hears it at moments, and it's accompanied throughout the film by this constant drone, the like throughout, and it's like, sorry, really annoying, but he hears it at certain times. It's like key discoveries or key moments before the bomb like has been made. And it's like, it's building to that moment of the main test and to what's going to happen. But yeah, there's lots of motifs, and as I said, those digital sounds are like his brain linking all the ideas together, which I love.
Digital sounds, isn't there?
Yeah, and also you've got the strings doing the more classical thing where it's always in the minor key, and they're kind of going up the scale, whilst you've got other instruments going down the scale to kind of make you feel like the unease at all times, like it's fighting against itself. The score feels like it's literally fighting against itself at all times. And yeah, the thing I wrote down at the time was like, when Cillian Murphy's face is blank, the music's filling in the gaps of how he's feeling, which sounds like a stupidly obvious thing to say, but it does a fantastic job of it. And yeah, it was, for me, it's a hard score to listen to without the film in general, because it's quite like with the minor key and the kind of tension it builds, it's quite an oppressive score. and quite a depressing score in a lot of sense, because I listened to the whole thing today in prep for the pod, so I wanted to get back into it. But it's a great piece of work, and what I liked was it was one of those scores where I could picture the exact moment of the film when I heard it. There was no kind of lost moments on it for me. But yeah,
I'd agree, and it reminded me of, and people might think I'm mental, but in terms of like, it's not a score I'd be able to listen to without watching the film. It Follows has a score that's very, very oppressive. It's like, and it just, for me personally, doesn't work. It's a very notorious score, but it doesn't work without the film. I think the one thing I said to John when we walked out of the cinema was that the score is in the background at all
throughout. Yeah, it doesn't really stop, apart from when the bomb goes off, which was a really interesting thing that happens when the bomb actually goes off. Brilliant. It's just silence, and it's so effective, and like that sequence is so effective because of the use of sound, and actually it's correct because the sound's delayed because of how far away the explosion is and all that kind of thing. So yeah. Like
I picked out a few tracks. Like there's a piece called "Can You Hear the Music?"
Yes, which plays immediately after he's been asked, "Can you hear the music?" in the sense of the scientific thing, and it kicks up. Who asks him? It is Kenneth Branagh's character asks him straight away.
Yeah, it's a classical piece. It's quite uplifting, and it gets quicker and quicker, and it's almost like
connecting the dots
through of sorts. For me, like, I think about the sophistication of these smart men trying to figure this thing out that the human race shouldn't be doing, and it makes me think a lot. Like something like, for me, technology is great, but there are certain things we should be content with as people, and trying to blow each other up quicker than the next person is probably not what we should be striving for. It's wild. The Manhattan Project piece I found it's obviously starts off like really staccato, and it's quite a sinister feeling, and at the same time has those futuristic parts, the
synthesized score kind of thing.
Exactly. Which is weird because it's a film sort of based in the 1950s.
But I think the ideas he had were so radical and forward thinking future wise about like the breaking of the atom, and I feel like the film does a great job of also visually depicting that as well, like all those quick cuts of seeing just like fire moving around, and do you know what I mean, like those kind of like scene, you know, in The Big Bang Theory when there's an advert break and you get the and it's got the like the atoms and stuff going around. It's like visually depicting that, but like making it look real. I think it does a good job of that, and it's very much aided by 100%. The score.
The one thing I would say, listen to Atmospheric Ignition. For me, that feels like he's made one of the biggest scientific breakthrough in existence, but he doesn't know how to feel about it. Like he can't be. He's famous. He's infamous. It's a really difficult thing to feel in terms of like morality, like and it's that's why the film is great, because it really does. You really think a lot.
My favourite scene is actually linked to that, what you're discussing then, which is after the bomb's gone off, you hear throughout the film, the sound design, you hear like the rumbling of something coming, and you actually find out it's the stamping of feet on the floor, awaiting Oppenheimer as he goes to tell them what's happened, like the people who've worked on the project, how it's being used. And some people are literally throwing up violently sick because they can't believe, like they think they potentially caused the end of the world, in the sense of like it's opened up the Pandora's box. You've got other people who are like making love underneath because they're so happy and things are great, and it's the start of the baby boom and all that stuff to come. But then he's looking at that thinking, well, that's just more people to be dying coming. But anyway, it sounds depressing, but it is
coming. Sorry.
And then, you know, like you've got the whole, he starts to give the speech, and then literally he sees someone in front of him dying as the people of Hiroshima would have done, which is like literally their face melting off, and it's just horrendous. And yeah, it's a real pivotal scene. It's a realization of what he's actually been working on. But yeah, I think for me, that is the scene, and that's the scene that the trailers were kind of based off, and that's like the pivotal moment for me, more so than the things that followed after. I know it's about his retribution afterwards, in the sense of, I say retribution, in the fact of how he was treated by the government and how it eventually all turned around.
I actually found that the most interesting part of the film.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
A lot of people that I have seen, read, blah blah blah. Again, I try and keep people's names out of my mouth, because I like to think of my own things. Most people thought that the last third of the film, so the last hour of the film, was the most difficult to watch, the most boring part, which I actually found it the most compelling part. I don't know. I've really struggled to follow Nolan's last two films. This was much easier than Tenet.
Yeah.
And maybe, do you know what? Maybe I'll watch it 3-4 times and I will prefer it again and again. I don't want to rush back to it at all. Maybe that's because
I think that's the heaviness of the theme. And it's, I'll be honest though, I'm intrigued to revisit Tenet. So I saw it at the time, and let's be honest, the world was a very strange place when all that was going on, and I've not revisited it since. But I'd be intrigued. What I would like to do while we're on that page though is, can we rank some Christopher Nolan films? Because I know someone wrote in and asked us to, and I really struggled to write the list.
Let me rank. Let me rank Christopher Nolan films. Okay, and I know I'm pretty much know my ranking. I've seen most of his films. The only film I haven't seen from him is Insomnia, because it's not really available.
Go for it. I've written. Has he got 8 films? I've put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But then I haven't seen the 9th, which would be Insomnia. Oh no, I've missed out Dark Knight Rises, but it'll be towards the bottom, so it's fine.
Pardon. Right, cool. Would you go first? Because
go for it. So my number, I'll go up. I think towards the bottom is Dark Knight Rises, because I was annoyed. It felt like a rush job. I feel like he wasn't fully committed to it at the time. I feel like it was a studio mandate kind of thing. And I still really like the film. I love the end sequence. The last 10 minutes of that film I love, but I just feel like there's some weird plot holes with it. Like, why does the entire Gotham police force go and get trapped underground and stuff? Anyway, I won't go into it. It's just that it feels a bit like, compared to The Dark Knight, it felt like a step down. But there's still lots of things I love about it. And I must say, with all of these films, they're all still really good. And that's my caveat. The next one I've got is The Prestige. Just for me...
What?
But no, let me explain why. Like, you can go what all you want. For me, it is a very good film, but it's not one I choose to rewatch. Like, I'm going on basis of what I rate on what I would pick up and watch and enjoy the most, and it's not up there.
Okay, so you're not rating it on what's good.
To me, it's what's good.
So no,
rude.
Sorry, you're rating it on personal enjoyment, which would not
absolutely.
Okay, cool, carry on.
That's the way I roll. Then you've got Batman Begins, and I genuinely think it is an underrated film, because it literally defined a whole generation of dark redos, including Amazing Spider-Man, Snyderverse, Casino Royale. All those things are essentially because of that. I've then put Dunkirk above it, and I wrote Time in it, but like, Dunkirk is one of those where I like Dunkirk the film. However, I've put it above Batman Begins for rewatch, which is now interesting. I think it's a better film than Batman Begins, but I don't think it's a film I enjoy watching because it's stressful. It's an hour and a half and it's got that ticking clock going. But it's very, very well put together. Then I've got so we're at 1, 2, 3, 4. My final 4. 4, Oppenheimer. It's hard for me to gauge that as number 4 or not, because I've seen it recently. You know what it's like when you've seen something recently, and it's like, is it higher than it should be? Is it not? But for me, from enjoyment, I think it is above Dunkirk. But if I'm being completely honest, I would rewatch Batman Begins over it, because I watch films like that more often. Mm-hmm. Then I've got number 3, Interstellar. I really like Interstellar. I loved it at the cinema the first time. It's his ode to 2001: A Space Odyssey. It has very similar things. The ending and the last 10-15 minutes goes a bit kind of mushy and not very thoughtful.
Incredible.
Which is interesting, because that's the part most people who like and stuff don't like. But anyway, look, it is what it is. I think that's one of those films I saw at the cinema and it felt genuinely justified. I've just realised I missed out number 4 because Interstellar's my number 3. My number 4 was Inception, but Inception, I feel like I've watched it so many times, I don't know if I'm completely butchering this, sorry. Inception is my number 3, Interstellar's my number 2, and number 1 is The Dark Knight. Let me go back and explain. Inception could be interchanged with those top 2. I think I just rewatched it too many times at university because I thought it was the best thing ever. So that's my own fault.
Classic uni.
It's just like, oh, do you want to watch Inception? Yeah, all right then, let's watch Inception. Anyway, and the soundtrack I'd absolutely just listen to too many times. And then Interstellar, my number 2. It's a film I haven't rewatched multiple times in the sense, the same scale as Inception, but it's a film that whenever I watch it, it stays with me. I love it. And I feel like I'll probably be more sentimental about it now. And like now being a dad too, I feel like it probably has a different pull to me than it would have done before. And then the final one, The Dark Knight, I just think like it's the most commercially accessible one, the one that did the best, and the one that, you know, it's a brilliant Batman film. It's basically Heat, but it's got Batman in it. Heath Ledger's performance. It's really hard for me.
It's Heat, but it's got Batman in it.
Yeah,
it is.
It is,
right,
and
right.
it's
Heat's a banger in it.
Yeah,
Heat is a
I
great
loved Heat.
film.
I'd love to watch it again. But
we
yeah,
watched it together.
We did, and I just find it hard to not. If I said to you Interstellar's my top or Inception, I'd be lying just for the sake of sounding like filmy, and I don't want to do it. Like the truth is, The Dark Knight's the one I've watched the most. It's the most watched Blu-ray I probably own. Of like modern films, I say modern films is like 2008, but of like that aren't Star Wars or Alien.
Memento. That's not on your list, is it?
Oh crap! I knew I'd forgotten one.
Sorry, I did.
I haven't seen Memento for years. I don't know. I'm gonna cop out. Go on, give me your list and ranking.
Okay, bottom of the barrel is Tenet. I think.
Oh crap! I didn't even put Tenet in there. Oh, I did. I put Tenet, not for me. Could rewatch his prequels. Too much control moment. No one's pushing back.
No one's pushing back. Do you know what, John? All we need is someone to push back. Tenet is trash, man. Like it's so bad. It's so bad. I hate it. I can't even tell you how much I hate it. It makes no sense. Tenet for me is Christopher Nolan so far up his own arse that it's unbelievable. And it was the what did he say about cinema?
I don't understand it. Feel it.
Shut up.
I'd love to quiz him more on Tenet because I feel like people just kind of ignore the fact it all happened now.
No. The problem with Tenet is that he was like, "Oh, this is going to bring everyone back to cinema after COVID."
Well, it did bring people back.
He doesn't know what the film's about. He wouldn't even be able to describe it right. So we've got Tenet last place by an absolute mile. I've not seen Insomnia or Following, by the way. So we've got Tenet last, and then we're gonna go with Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh no, sorry. We're gonna go with Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna go with Dunkirk. Then we're gonna go with Dark Knight Rises. Then we're gonna go with Oppenheimer.
That's quite low.
I just.
But go for it. Yeah.
No. And by the way, like, most of Nolan's films are a solid 8 out of 10.
And that's what I was trying to say when I was doing my reviews. Like, literally, a lot of them are interchangeable on the basis of. I don't think many of his films are under an 8. And I'd stand by that.
Do you know what?
Tenet's the one that isn't, and Dark Knight Rises is probably close to a 7 or maybe a 6.5.
The problem is for me, like I'd probably watch Dark Knight Rises over Oppenheimer. I'm aware Oppenheimer.
Yeah, but that's because it's a Batman film and it's different and more accessible anyway. It's a different vibe. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
So then I am gonna go. I'm gonna go with Inception because I haven't seen it enough times. So.
That's mad. I've watched it so many times.
I've watched it about twice. Then
I reckon I saw that film 4 times at the cinema minimum, and then on Blu-ray I've seen it too many times.
Yes, that's gross. Then I'm going to go with Memento. A lot of people think that's his best film. Not for me. And then so I think this is my top 3 now.
Go for it.
So it's Dark Knight Rises at 3rd.
Wow, that is high, but okay.
Yep.
And then Batman Begins, and then
number 2. And I think Interstellar is his best film for me.
So where's Dark Knight?
No, sorry, I said Dark Knight Rises is 3rd. Oh, sorry, I meant Dark Knight.
Oh, right, okay, fine. I was going to say that's why I said Dark Knight Rises, and you were like number 3. I was like, that is high. I mean,
no, Dark Knight is
The
3rd.
Dark Knight is
The
3rd.
Dark Knight is 3rd. Batman Begins is second, and I think Interstellar is. Oh, sorry. This is it. This is what happens when you don't actually write it down. Are we going to go again?
Oh God, go on.
Sorry about that. So, I've missed out the number one.
Jeez.
Number two. Sorry, The Prestige is number two.
Right.
Interstellar number one, Prestige number two, Batman Begins number three, The Dark Knight number four. Okay.
I think I'm about caught up there. Good luck deciphering that one, listeners. Have fun.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, Prestige. Yeah, Prestige number two. Prestige is unreal. Like, I think that the unraveling of the Prestige, and so this is what I was talking about earlier. When I was talking about the fact that he's obsessed with time, I think that it was it's now to his detriment. But in the past, it was his strength. Like, people are like, yeah, Christopher Nolan, he does these crazy things with like non-linearity.
He didn't in The Dark Knight, though. To be fair, did he?
No, he did.
Yeah. What? No, not in The Dark Knight.
The whole Harvey thing when. I'm sure he did. So
I remember it in the third one. I don't remember it in the second one. But go on.
So when Harvey is basically going to one of the two, he's going to go and save Batman, or he's going to go and save...
but he tells them that the wrong location for the wrong person, so he makes the wrong choice. It's nothing to do with actual, like, there's no non-linear going on.
Cool.
But I love it when his face is burning. He goes, Rachel!
He's lying on the floor and there's flames.
Anyway, whatever.
That's lovely, John. That's really nice.
There's another question I wanted to get onto, which was from, I believe, let me scroll to where it is. I think it's from our friend of the pod, Kate Reviews Films, and she talked about, what did you make of the gendered assumptions about who these movies are for in relation to Barbie and Oppenheimer? Mm-hmm. Do you want me to lead, or have you got something you want to say?
Go for it. No, go for it.
So, Kate, I might be wrong, but I feel like when Hollywood markets films, it likes to box and categorize these things to make them easier to sell, whether we agree with them or not. And it's an easier narrative to say Oppenheimer will appeal to men because it's about war, and men like war, but they can relate to him because he's a man. And it's easy to say, oh, Barbie's a female empowerment movie, so it's not for men. But the thing with that for me, and I think you'll agree, is like it's damaging because there's no reason why either sex wouldn't like either film anyway. Like, who defines like who likes what? I think it's quite traditional thinking to be like only men will like this or only women will like this, especially ironic when you consider what Barbie itself and the message it's trying to get across to its audience. But yeah, I did notice in the Instagram film community, which it sometimes can be an absolutely fantastic place and sometimes can be quite toxic, there are a lot of film bros jumping on like Barbie's trash compared to the pure artistry of Oppenheimer and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like weirdly the marketing campaigns of the film has kind of fueled that in some respect. I don't know if you'd agree, Jamie, just the fact that like, they're literally kind of, it's that going back to that love-hate thing, isn't it? If you don't love it, you gotta hate it. But yeah, I just feel like for me, studios will always pigeonhole and try and sell things to the lowest common denominator, and the fact of like what's the easiest thing for it. And it's like Barbie's for girls and like Oppenheimer's for men, and like it's crap. It's the way they do that and the way they target it. But I feel like they do that, which leads into people rinse and repeating that. But like, there's plenty of films that I enjoy, which marketers might say I shouldn't enjoy. Like, I love 10 Things I Hate About You and Mean Girls. Are you gonna come at me and like tell me I shouldn't be watching that, Warner Brothers or whoever? Like, do you know what I mean? It's just like, it is what it is.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Sorry, that's yeah.
Well, everyone would always try and make assumptions on everything. Like, so for me, Dirty Dancing is my favourite film, and
it's like a film studio saying it's not for you. It's not for you,
exactly. Mate. And do you know what? I think that is it's a classic. It's a very, very good example of the fact that like my top two favourite films interchange all the time. One of them is Goodfellas, and one of them is Dirty Dancing. I know that Goodfellas is better than Dirty Dancing, but my favourite is Dirty Dancing. Now, the gendered assumptions it's very like it's very obvious. The whole pink thing was like aimed at women, but at the same time, I know loads of couples and loads of men that have gone dressed in pink to go and see Barbie, because it's like, it's an event, and in reality, like, I don't really think people care. Like, most normal level-headed people don't see pink as a girl's colour. They don't. They're just there for the crack. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're there for
the event. It's been an event to go and
fun. Like that's all it's about. And obviously, the whole, and this is what I was getting at earlier on. And I really have to stress that I don't mean this as a slight against people that love Nolan or the film bros that because that's a thing in itself where people are like stereotyped into like film bros. I don't mean it like that. I simply mean that like there is a thing where Nolan fans mostly are men and mostly love to sound clever, and there is a lot of like incel kind of talk around all of that stuff, as well as Barbie now, actually. The gendered assumptions, like, just there's always. It's
like saying we can't like La La Land, isn't it? Because I remember, and do you know what?
Love this podcast. Loves La La Land. It's our fave.
I say every time it's a film I watched the first time and I didn't give two hoots about, and it just didn't click with me. Second time, loved it, and I find it weird. But anyway, what I was going to say.
Maybe it'll click for you a third time, Kate. You hated it.
You still don't like it. But what I was going to say was, like, I remember they marketed that on the fact of the Oscar trail for it and the awards it could receive and the performances, rather than focus on the musical aspects. As mad as that sounds in some aspect, like, because they wanted to attract the most diverse audience, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's
marketing. Weird, right?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously a Barbie film will always be marketed at women, but this has happened to just be marketed at everyone. Like, I've been excited from day one. Like, I have.
They played on
Oppenheimer, on the other hand, I don't think it's been marketed at women at all. Like, whereas Barbie seems to have been cleverly marketed at everyone.
But then I suppose the question is, what is marketed? Like, how?
What is marketing?
No, but in terms of like, what is it in the sense of like, why should Oppenheimer be targeted differently between men and women? Like, if you're interested in history, or you're interested in the atomic bomb, or watching his life, it doesn't really matter if you're a man or woman.
Interested in being confused. Anyway, last question to finish the pod, I reckon.
Go for it.
Kims.cinema.escape writes in, whoop, and she says, I personally didn't like Oppenheimer, but the bomb test scene was great.
Agree.
What are some of your favourite scenes from movies you didn't otherwise like?
Oh, that's the one question I did not write down. Jamie's gonna lead while Johnny thinks of things.
Guess what? I didn't also write anything down because it's really funny, Kim.
Sorry, yeah, go on.
What's really funny is that the films that I don't like, I really don't think about ever again. So
I don't know. There's stuff like I don't think The Phantom Menace is a good film, but Duel of Fates is like one of the best sequences of all time, like action scenes. Funny. That's what you were thinking as well.
No,
damn it.
So we had a silent toilet break, not together, separately. We had a silent toilet break, and I was having a wee, and I was thinking about this question because I've been thinking about it all day, and I'm like, there's not really much. Do you know what? Attack of the Clones from the prequel.
Do you know what though? Attack of the Clones. That's another good one for the chasing through the asteroid belt and the bombs that go. Like, I love that. I'm all over that. Sorry, go on.
So so Attack of the Clones notoriously is my favourite from the prequel films.
Used to be, you know,
for a
yeah,
long time.
Funny.
I'm aware it's a trash film, but I was obsessed with Anakin, and do you know what's weird? I remembered it when I was like a kid. I remembered it when I was a kid, and I was like, oh yeah, he has two lightsabers, and he does.
That's so rubbish.
And he has two lightsabers for about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So
Whoa.
I remember like talking about Attack of the Clones, and like Anakin's got the two lightsabers, and he's like, and he gets his hand chopped off in about 2 seconds. So that's probably.
I'm trying to think of some non-Star Wars ones now. Like, I'm just like, I'm struggling, but I'm thinking of like there's Bond films where there's like always a good stunt, even if the rest of the film's pretty naff. and not to our
except
liking.
Die Another Day.
Die Another Day's got right. No, I'll die on that hill. Die Another Day starts well. It goes downhill. Like, as soon as he gets to Cuba, it's downhill. But like that opening, there you go. There's one for you. I like the opening sequence where they're on the hover ships and they've got the Uzis and they're going at each other. And I don't even mind the initial surfing to the locations. Like, that's a good sequence. I'm trying to think of some more now. I'm looking across. Star Trek Into Darkness is a film I don't like, but I like the scene when they do the jump from ship to ship. You seen it? You know, when they jump.
That's the third one of the
second
the
one
trilogy. Second one.
I like when they jump out of the they have to like use the suits with like jetpacks in to like get through a asteroid field kind of vibe thing. I enjoy that.
Yeah. Look, there isn't really many films that.
There's quite a few I'm thinking of now.
I like when I see a film and I really hate it. Something like is it what's the film with Scarlett Johansson? Like that
oh, the one you hate.
Yeah,
which is an alien, but not
Into the something.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah. Void, not.
Nah, it's not.
Whatever.
Anyway, Kim, really sorry. It's a really good question.
Kim, can you tell how we'd prepared for like every other question apart from that one? Like how detailed we went and like really thought about it. And then this one, it was like, well, something Star Wars and like two lightsabers and hand cut off. But hey,
Kim, John's basically just said in not so many words, you're the Ken of this pod, which
ooh,
is really harsh. So Ken and John, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyway,
sorry,
right.
Kim.
That's genuinely it.
That's been quite a whopper. But I hope everyone's enjoyed the Barbenheimer chat, and it's been really interesting doing this one because there's been so much talk around it, and like it's actually been quite nice because we've had quite a lot of interest before we've done this, and then it actually felt way more pressure than a normal recording. And then Jamie's internet
really
decided to die 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times to like ruin his flow. So Jamie, I hope you do a good job on the edit this week, my friend. I'm sure you will.
I have done a good job.
He did a great job on the edit. I've already heard it back.
This has been a genuine disaster. So let's just wait
teams shafted us. Never again.
Yeah, teams did shaft us tonight. We're on WhatsApp video by the way right now, like, and I'm like kind of looking at him, and he's been looking at me the whole time. But do you know what? It doesn't really matter. This is I've been genuinely apprehensive about this one because it's a biggie, and we have had a lot of people like message in. A lot of people. Do you know what, John? Guess what people have asked for?
The OC special.
OC pod.
I know, it's gonna be great. I mean, I say that as if we're doing it. Like I'll be up for it, but I need to rewatch some. And if we talked about it, I feel like we'd have to pick some key episodes because I haven't got time to rewatch.
I think
the entirety of the OC,
like half of season 1.
No, I know key episodes of season 1. There's got to be a good watch list somewhere for some of season 1, some key bits of season 2, and then we've got to get to like that key death in season 3. We've got to do it. But what I would say is,
great, though.
I watched. It's all right.
Good times.
Yeah, it's positive vibes. I rewatched season 1 in 2020 when we all had a lot of spare time, didn't we? Or 2021, and I remember it's still like breaking me and still loving it. But anyway, chat for another day. If you are genuinely interested in an OC episode, let us know because we've had a fair whack of interest already. But if you're up for it, that'd be good fun.
Yeah, guess what else? We're on YouTube now, which I keep forgetting to mention. Why don't you just type in your little YouTube feed, Movies in a Podshell, and you'll find us. Someone did mention that they thought that the origin of the Movies in a Podshell was something to do with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I kind of understand. Heroes in a half shell, turtle power, or something like that. No, it's not. It's just that I used to be Movies in a Nutshell, which I used to do like little tiny reviews in a nutshell kind of thing. Like, so for people that are busy, they would read a little review and then they would be like, oh, should I watch it, should I not? And then we did a podcast, and I wanted to take all my viewers, readers, over to the podcast, and so we did Movies in a Podshell.
Followers.
Oh, there you go. Subscribers. Anyway, speaking of subscribers, how about you go on your little podcasts and get your little Spotify and your little Apple Podcasts, and could you please rate us 5 stars? We only accept 5 stars.
Correct.
Yeah, you know why? Because that's what gets us the listens. If you give us anything less, I'll just delete it. Genuinely though, really, really does help if you could please cancel this off. Go and subscribe. Go and rate us 5 stars. I can't even tell you how much it helps us. Anyway, John, we're going to be back for episode 60.
60.
Whoa, game on! Episode 60, nearly at retirement. Episode 60 is going to be fun times. Anyway, I am Movies in a Pod Shell. Well, we are. And John, where can they find you? And you're like mad. You're getting big time now, baby, aren't you? You're doing some big shoots now.
I've been doing bits, but yeah, I'm at jcb.video. Check out what I've been doing.
He's been doing some bits. See ya!